welcome to the 395th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony. This is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out, big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter and be awesome and helpful and keep the show going by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit to the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get more. You get more podcasts. You get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I often look back and just classic comic books, we're like currently looking at the John Byrne era of Fantastic Four. We were doing Amazing Spider-Man before. We're doing a bunch of stuff. I also do off of mind topics, random, just what I think about different topics, and sometimes they're mostly comic related, but sometimes there are other things. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can still help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or three, and that's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. And if you don't want to just buy me a virtual cup of coffee, you can also go to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. You can purchase one of those Off My Mind episodes for the same price. I have them set at $3. But if you use the Patreon iOS app, they charge 30% more, not me. All right. Welcome to another episode. This week, the movie feature is controversial. It is Snow White. So people have a lot to say about this. Actually, I don't know if people have a lot to say about this. It's kind of like they're just saying kind of very little, just like they're just saying this one thing. So we'll talk about it. I definitely have things to say about it. And, I have been, doing some thinking about it and so forth. So stay tuned for that. Because I went into this with an open mind. Was it a movie I was dying to see? Absolutely not. I'm totally honest. The only reason I went to see it is for the podcast, but you'll hear about it. And as far as TV shows, there's not a whole lot, which is interesting. So this episode is going to be a little on the shorter side. It's going to give me a chance to catch my breath for the next couple of weeks. So, some other stuff. There's some stuff coming up, like in April and so forth. So we're going to have another episode of Daredevil Born Again, another episode of Severance, the penultimate episode of season 2, and that's it. Just only two shows, and we got comics and news. Okay, so news and rumors. Ryan Reynolds posted a video celebrating 10 years of Deadpool, and it was just like this 32-second clip. And I didn't pay super attention, detail, whatever, but I think it might have been Deadpool and Wolverine, like the whole movie just sped up in 32 seconds or something like that. So, you got to say Ryan Reynolds did a lot for Deadpool, and it's just crazy that that leaked test footage, and it went from there, and everyone loves it. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't like Deadpool, I mean, maybe there's something about Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. I mean, I think he's really rejuvenated he really added a lot. I mean, the Deadpool's fandom, a lot of it depends, or relies on what Ryan Reynolds does. And not all of it, I'm not going to give him all the credit, but it really added, or, at the very least, it brought Deadpool to so many people, so there's that. But what was interesting, I forget if it might have been an Instagram or Facebook. Maybe it was Instagram. It was on the, do they call it a For You page on there or whatever? I don't always click on those because, if it's something, I'm going to admit, if it's something really weird or lame, I don't want to click on it and give it a view, add to the metrics or whatever. And that messes up my algorithm. Why is it even there to begin with? Because it's somewhat sort of, related to the algorithm. And if you click too many things, if you click on a bunch of videos about bird watching, you're going to get bird watching in your feed. Like on my second Instagram account, my photographs, Tony Guerrero photos, I keep getting Springer Spaniel videos, and I love it because I had a Springer Spaniel. I miss her so much. She was amazing, and I shared a couple like reels with my wife, and now I still get when I scroll through my timeline, I still get like suggested Springer Spaniel. So you got to be careful with this algorithm stuff. Now so what am I getting at? There was one, and I kind of had to look at it carefully. There was one that was saying something that Marvel has severed ties with Ryan Reynolds. They cut ties, that they don't want anything to do with him. So no more Deadpool. It's like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Didn't Deadpool and Wolverine make over $1 billion? And it's just like the cha-ching. Yeah. So I'm assuming they're trying to say like, oh, Ryan Reynolds this or that because of the lawsuit and all this, and which is ridiculous. And yeah, it's so silly. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Elizabeth Olsen, let's talk about that. What the heck is going on with Elizabeth? Why don't we where's Scarlet Witch and what is going on? One, I need to watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I need to watch that again. Is Scarlet Witch alive or not? And she keeps saying that, like, yeah, she'll come back, but then it's like they're not calling her. So I don't know what the deal is. But the latest, she says that she wants to come back as like old Scarlet Witch, like white haired, wrinkles and it's like, okay, why? Maybe in Doomsday we'll see Avengers Doomsday. I don't know. Jonathan Major, of course, he also wants to return to Marvel, and I really don't know what to think about this. I don't know. He was found guilty. Was it domestic, whatever? And I still don't know. You hear different things that he wasn't doing anything. It was defending or whatever. And did he hit his girlfriend? But then she was at a club after, and I really don't know what the deal is. So he was supposed to be king. They were going to do Kang's Dynasty. It was like this whole big thing, and then Marvel let him go because you don't want someone that's going to have that bad publicity. But he's saying that he wants to return to Marvel, and I think it was a Hollywood Reporter did this big thing. They did some article about like his redemption and stuff like that. But the thing is, they had, was it, or maybe I think it was Hollywood Reporter. But then there's like 3 or 4 different. I kept seeing these like. I don't think it was the same post, just kept getting pumped into my timeline. But it's just like, I don't know if I want to support this guy because I don't know the detail, and you don't hit your significant other. But like I said, I don't know the whole details. But he would like to come back. I mean, he was great as Kang. And he's a good actor. He's a bit much sometimes for me, but and see, that's what I think, because I think of him like in Creed 3, that was just but that was a character, so that was him acting, so that was good. That it just bothered me the way he was, because it's supposed to, I think, right? So he would like to come back to Marvel, and he says that he's still rooting for Marvel. He's still watching the movies and everything like that. And he's like, they know my number if they need me or whatever. So part of the one part of me is like, I'm curious, what was the story? What were we gonna get with Kang? Where was this gonna go? I don't love Kang as a comic character at all. I think he's kind of a dork and annoying. So when Marvel's like, we're going to do all this stuff around Kang and we're going to have the Kang down, I'm like, all right, why? But okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like what they wanted to do and all that. But, I don't know. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Now, going along with that is there's a sort of like a rumor that Loki might be playing a big part, or finding Loki might be a big part of Avengers Doomsday, because he is, if you know how, spoiler, if you know how season 2 ended, he's a big part of like protecting the multiverse, right? The rumor, and I don't know if I buy this rumor or not. I'll get to that in a second. But basically it's like Dr. Doom or Tony Stark, whoever wants to look for him to like take control of all reality. So We saw in Loki season 2. Loki's he's got a big job now, and that would make sense. The reason I'm kind of hesitant or doubtful about this, where is this information coming from? Because the Russos are like, we got everything locked down tight. Nothing's going to get out. We're doing all this stuff, but of course nothing's whatever infallible, or it's there's no guarantee that. And I've said this so many times. I just do not understand why anyone would talk. If you are working on one of these big movies, you have nothing to gain from doing this. Because if you are leaking information, unless you are getting paid a lot of money to leak this information out, you are gaining nothing out of this, because you're not getting any credit. You can't get any credit, because then you're going to immediately lose your job. But if you're getting paid for that, it's like, are you just not getting paid enough in your own job? Are you just greedy? It's like, I don't understand. And as a comics journalist or whatever, once upon a time, we never had like, here's like the sludge fund or whatever. Here's our budget for buying information. We never did that. And I'm not saying people don't do that. I don't know, but we never did it. I never ever experienced anything like that. Like, we never paid for anything. And let me also throw in there, we never got paid to do comic reviews or any sort of reviews. People are always like, oh, you gave this, 5 out of 5. How much you get paid? How much are you paid? Which is ridiculous, and it's insulting. So yeah, I don't understand why anyone would leak anything. Unless you're just I feel like if you're leaking stuff out, you must have some bitterness. Like, you must be angry or something. And maybe if someone is not getting paid, they feel they're not getting paid enough when they're doing all this work, then maybe they're going to be like, screw you. Yeah, I'm going to leak this out. But it seems silly, because if you're working on something, you should be protective of it. And I just don't understand. So I don't know. It makes sense. It's a lot of this stuff that comes out. Sometimes some of it feels like, yeah, this is kind of common sense, or it's not that hard of a big of a stretch to try to come up with this idea, this theory, and like fan fiction. So I don't know. Colin Farrell is not going to be in Marvel, but it looks like he might be Sergeant Rock, because Daniel Craig had to step down. So now we may have the Penguin as Sergeant Rock. And at first I'm like, wait, what? Why? He can't. But I guess, there's nothing wrong with it, because if he does this, doesn't mean there's no more Penguin. We may still see the Penguin. And he could do them. Even though the Penguin's in a different comic universe, they could put him in the same movie, and it would not, could not tell that they are the same actor, whatever Sergeant Rock's going to look like. So my big thing is, I said this before, I have no connection, no ties, I am not rooting for Sergeant Rock in any form, because I've never really, I don't even know if I've ever read anything with Sergeant. I must have seen something, but I have no attachment to Sergeant Rock. I don't understand why they're doing a movie. So what is he, just a soldier? I'm not saying we can't have movies or stories about soldiers. You can do some cool stuff, but it's just, I don't know. And when I look at it, it's like, okay, so if we're gonna get Colin Farrell, you're gonna get an actor of caliber, of talent. You want him to be in a cool role. And for me, if there was never a Sergeant Rock movie, I'd be fine with that. But for those who like Sergeant Rock, great. I'm just not one of them, and maybe I'm not giving him a fair chance, but I will definitely watch it, but okay. Also, speaking of DC, Jason Momoa had some stuff to say about Lobo, and he was talking about how Lobo's his favorite character, so it was like a no-brainer for him to do it. He said he is really nervous because the character means a lot to him. But he was talking about the looks. He says that they look dead on. So I'm assuming he's talking about Supergirl as well, and himself. And because he says that the bike's really cool, but he said that it's Millie's movie. I forgot her name, but he called her Millie. And he says he just comes in for a little bit. So it's just gonna be a cameo, but he's really excited, and that's good. Yeah, I think I've mentioned before. I used to really like Lobo, and then I just got so annoyed with him. It's just so tired. It was just so like overused, and I think it's kind of how a lot of people feel about Deadpool. They're just tired of the same thing, and that's like Lobo's like, oh, you bastard, and I'm gonna kill everyone, and I'm the toughest there is, and it got old, but it'll be cool to see. And speaking of Jason Momoa, I finally saw the trailer for Minecraft. And I don't know if I knew he was in it or I just totally forgot, but yeah, Jack Black's in it, and I don't think I'm going to be seeing it in theater. And looking at the trailer, I feel like this movie, and so whatever, putting my feelings on Jack Black aside, I feel like this is meant for a younger audience. I mean, it feels like it's more of a kiddies movie, and maybe that's how it's supposed to be. But I don't think Minecraft is just for kids, because my daughter, who is an adult, she every once in a while will break open the Minecraft. She's still into it. She's been playing it since she was a tiny kid. So I feel like all those kids, they've grown up. So there's got to be these other ones. Like my nieces, they were all into Minecraft, and they would build their worlds and share their worlds and all that stuff. So I don't think it's just like 8-year-olds that are playing it right now, and maybe some of those 8-year-olds, maybe they get a point and they outgrow it or they put it aside, but. I don't know. It just seems, and maybe the movie is not just for kids, because when you put in like a Jack Black or Jason Momoa, you're going to have some more, I almost said sophisticated humor. So maybe some more, not necessarily adult humor, but some more, some stuff that the kids might not get. It just seems, yeah, like an interesting movie. So we'll see. There was also a feature that came out, Woman in the Yard. I'm a little torn about this. I'm probably, and I'll talk about it at the end of the show, I don't think I'm going to be seeing that next week. I am curious. I will see it at some point, but just from what I've seen, I don't feel like an urge to see it in the theater. I don't feel like I need to see it in the theater. I'm curious to see what the story is. I don't even know if there's much of a story. Maybe there is, and maybe I'm just totally missing, and maybe that the trailers are doing a job by not spoiling too much like trailers sometimes do, but at the same time this trailer's not really doing much for me to sell it. So I watched this featurette. I was like, all right, I'll give this another shot, and like I said, it didn't really do anything to like, oh man, I gotta see that. A couple comic books. There's going to be a giant-sized Spider-Man coming out in June 2025. So giant-sized Spider-Man #1. And the on a cover, there's supposed to be some new character. It's going to change the future of Marvel Comics. And the editor, I think it was Nick Lowe, said that it's like the coolest new character in recent memory. So is that true, or is it just a bunch of hype and whatever? So I don't know. I find it hard to believe. The story's going to be written by Chip Zdarsky and the art's by Cafu. Okay, we'll see. So then, speculators, you might want to order a copy of Giant-Sized Spider-Man in case it's the character to change the future. They also said the same thing about Marcus Johnson. Remember that? Marcus Johnson was going to change Marvel forever. That's what they said. And not only that, this was such a big character. It took 3 writers to come up with him. And I don't remember who they were. I know Matt Fraction was one, and I love Matt Fraction. I said it twice because that's how much I think. I think he's a hilarious person, and I think he's an awesome writer. And I wish I got to talk to him more. And he threatened me on camera as a joke. And but yeah, so Marcus, who the heck is Marcus Johnson, and who are the other 2 people involved? I apologize for not remembering. Marcus Johnson. That was his name, right? I feel like that's not it. It was Nick Fury Jr. Who's Nick Fury Jr.? The Nick Fury in the Marvel, you know who he is. And he didn't change the face of Marvel, I don't think. So we'll see whoever this new character is. But also in this There's gonna be a story about Al Ewing exploring whatever, something about Spider-Man and his amazing friends. I don't like when they do that every once in a while. I feel like it's just like, oh, let's do this as a nostalgia kick, but it's like it feels, to me it feels so forced. But maybe this will be different. Then there's going to be a story by Kevin Smith with the Fantastic Four. You know, I just keep thinking back to Kevin Smith on writing Batman and making Batman pee his pants. You know what I'm talking about. I think I wrote an article about it on the Comic Vine. Speaking of Kevin Smith, there's going to be a Jay and Silent Bob Archie crossover. I can't get excited for it. I'm sad to say that. I mean, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back used to be like one of my favorite the Kevin Smith movies. It's hard, that or Mallrats. I mean, I really love those movies, but I think the problem is with Instagram, with the Jay and Silent Bob Instagram and kind of Kevin Smith, they keep playing that same clip from Jay and Silent Bob, the Jay's rap, over, or they look for so many opportunities. I think the last one was, it's St. Patrick's Day. Then here's I can't even do the song because it's full of profanity, and it was hilarious when it came out, but I feel like they posted that so many times, and it's like, you need to get a new song. You need to do something else. You can do it. So, Giant Size Spider-Man, number 1. Yeah, we'll see that. Speaking of Fantastic Four, guess what? There's going to be a new Fantastic Four number 1, just in time for the movies. So what makes it kind of funny, and I totally get why they're doing it, but Ryan North has been writing Fantastic Four, so I was like, oh man, I was like, cool. Humberto Ramos is going to be doing the art. But man, it's like Ryan North has been doing a good job with Fantastic Four. I haven't loved every single issue, every single decision, but I've really been enjoying his run, and it's going to continue. So even though he is the current writer, and has been for I don't know what issue they're on, they're 20-something, 30-something. I don't think they're in the 30s yet. But they're going to just do a new number 1, which is ridiculous, but that's how it goes. So when people see the movie, they're like, hey, I should read some comics. Well, look, Spider-Man or Fantastic Four number 1. Okay, cool. First issue. But yeah, it's not. It's really the 400th. I don't even know what number they're on. Gotta be more than 400. Yeah, definitely more than 400. I don't even know. And then the last bit of news, School Spirits, the Peyton List show, has been renewed for a 3rd season. So I think that's awesome. I have not watched the 2nd season, and I'm bummed by that. I did talk about the 1st season on the show. The reason I haven't talked about the 2nd season is it's on Paramount Plus, and I don't have Paramount Plus. And just recently look at, man, I'm spending so much money. I try not to think about it. Spending so much money on all the streaming stuff. So I don't do Paramount Plus, and I don't do Paramount Plus or Showtime, and I think they're kind of tied together right now. So I still haven't seen Yellow Jackets season 2, and season 3 is almost over. Because I know season 1 is on Netflix, and I think season 1 of School Spirits is. But I did like the 1st season. The problem with this news is that kind of tells me, it's like, oh. So that the premise of School Spirits is we have a high school girl, she gets killed, and she's a ghost, and she's trapped on school grounds, and she doesn't know how she died, and so she's trying to find out how she died, and her best friend, he can see he can talk to her ghost, her spirit, and she's trying to figure out what happened. So this is not necessarily, since I haven't watched season 2, but this is kind of telling me, oh, I guess she doesn't find out what happened in season 2 if there's going to be a season 3. I mean, unless they're going to go to different, maybe she finds out, maybe there's something else, or who knows. I'm sure they got to figure out. But I really like Peyton List. I think she's really good, and obviously she's in Cobra Kai. So I think she's someone to keep an eye on, and check that out. Like I said, I think the 1st season on Netflix, and then it's all on Paramount Plus. Oh, and the season 2 premiere was up 94% from the season 1 premiere. So that's pretty awesome. And I think it was 3.9 million people viewed it or watched it within a certain amount of time. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think that's what it was. And that is what this was. That is going to be the news for the week. All right, with comic books, so there's a lot that came out, and there's some stuff that I missed. Silverhawks #2 came out. So remember, I still haven't read issue 1, and I think, let me double check. Herculoids #2 came out. How is that #2 out already? Because I feel like it was just a couple weeks ago that issue 1 came out, maybe. And I've been meaning to read issue 1 because I'm really curious. Because I enjoyed the cartoon, the series. So, I mean, I got to check that out. And then to make things worse, didn't Space Ghost, maybe it didn't come out. I thought Space Ghost came out this week. Because I think I'm 2 issues behind on Space Ghost. Okay, I'm not seeing it on previews. But there's a new Thundercat, and I feel like I'm behind on Thundercats. I don't know what it is with Dynamite. But there's Thundercats Lost, and I saw the cover. I'm like, wait, what is this? Who are these Thundercats? So this is by Ed Brisson, who's a good writer, and it's after being shot down in the middle of a war zone, 5 Thunderian warriors are fighting for their lives. Together they face a horde of heavily armed soldiers, and the team's only hope is to somehow break through their lines to reach the wreckage of their ship. Such overwhelming odds will strain their abilities to the absolute limit. But even if, and this is where I was like, when I was reading this, I was like, wait, who? Pumra, Lynx-O, Shen, Ligon, and their hammer-wielding commander, Bengali, if they make it out alive, will they still be able to complete their mission? And even more important, who is mysterious antagonist? Who is hunting them? And what is his connection to the Book of Omens? So that sounds intriguing and everything like that. But when I look at these, I was like, who are these? I don't know who they are, so I don't know if I care about them. But I should check that out. But I did not this week. At Boom Studios, there was a comic I read, is Last Boy #1. And Last Boy #1 is by Dan Panosian. Is that how you say it? And art by Alessio Avallone. So it's a Peter Pan, story. So I'm like, okay. So years after Peter Pan's adventure with Wendy Darling, the boy who wouldn't grow up is now the last one in Neverland, still clinging to his adventurous youth. Meanwhile, in London, Wendy also yearns for childhood and its freedoms from responsibility as she rails against the transition to adulthood and her family's expectations. As their desires create a mirror of fantasy and reality, a disastrous encounter with the aging Captain Hook becomes a catalyst for Peter's realization that Neverland is growing up without him. But will the two of them find each other once again to carry on their age-old adventure? Or is this truly the final threshold of their adolescence in this modern take on a classic tale from legendary writer Dan Panosian? So yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to give anything away, but there's one thing I was like, whoop. And it's weird. It's kind of unfortunate. You see Wendy, she's like older, like her parents are older, and she's So I found that pretty interesting. So I think you should check that out from Boom Studios. Also at Boom Studio, I should mention there was also Minor Arcana. This is the collection. This is the Jeff Lemire story. Collects Minor Arcana 1 through 5. So you can check that out also. But at Image Comics, there was Adventure Man Family Tree #1. I was going to read this. I didn't because I haven't read the last Adventure Man series or whatever. So I don't know if I can read this if I'm going to be lost. So this is by Matt Fraction, Terry Dotson, Rachel Dotson, Caton Cowles. Yeah, so I've always been interested, but this was just series where I like fell behind, and then I was like, wait, I need to get caught up, and then I just didn't, and yeah, so check that out. Let me know how it is. We also have The Deviant #9. So this was a James Tynion series, and when I saw this, I was like, wait, this is out. I was like, I thought this was over. Joshua Hickson does the art, and I think this is the last issue. So we had a bit of a. It's been a while since issue 8, at least a couple months. So I don't know if what the wider reason was, but it feels like everything gets wrapped up. We find out like answers and stuff like that. And this was a dark story. It's a little disturbing, but it was interesting, and just about a serial killer, and so you should check that out. G.I. Joe number 5. It's interesting seeing this different take of G.I. Joe. I mean, I'm trying to think like what can I say about it? It's just besides that it's really good. It's cool to see this different version. We're starting from scratch, and it's like still the early stages of G.I. Joe, and they don't really know who Cobra is or what Cobra is, and then the fact that there's like the energon weapons, and what does all this mean, and some of the Joes were captured and things aren't looking too good for him, and then Cobra has got there's this device, this weapon that's going to be used, which could be a problem. So you should check that out. Yeah. So I mean, we're 5 issues in, so you definitely if you haven't been reading it, track those issues down and check it out. And I think that's all I read. Oh no, there was Rockefellers number 4. So this is Peter Tomasi and Francis Manipul, and this is the other interesting one where we got this family. I think they're from like the 25th century, and they're on the run. Someone's hunting them down, and they end up in the present day, and just trying to live under the radar, which is weird. Trying to be in the past and not draw attention to yourself. And who is hunting them down? What does that mean? And what happens if they find them? So there's definitely some cool things here. At Marvel, so we had Avengers 24. This, I don't know what the full story is here. This big heisting story we have with Kang and Black Cat, I think it's cool to see Black Cat, because I love Jed MacKay. His Black Cat 2 series, both of them, because they started it over for some reason. They were great. I love what he did with the character, and it just feels a little weird. The story is like, what's really going on here? And there was a report that Marvel was kind of changing things. So if you look on the cover, we have this. I don't even remember what this character's name's in the center. This dude who had like this bet with the Grandmaster, and he's kind of like taking the center stage in these next whatever's coming issues. And I think originally that spotlight was going to be on Kang. Kang is in this issue, but I think he's kind of being relegated to the sidelines, and we're not going to re-sing a whole lot with him. But this Avengers series kind of started with Kang, and when he was like on the run and whatever and everything. But the report was that Marvel is kind of lessening the importance of Kang, and I don't know if it has anything to do with the Jonathan Major stuff. So they kind of had like backtrack and like kind of redo some stuff, and I don't know if that's true or not. So it just felt like, like I don't know if things were rushed or I don't know. But then we have Cable, Love and Chrome number 3, and so this is David Pepose and Mike Henderson. I don't know if I missed it, but I'm curious about where this takes place in Cable's timeline, and because things aren't looking too good for him, with the what is it, the transmode virus? Is that what it's called? Techno-organic virus, and so he's in a time and place where there are other people with this virus, and he's formed this attachment, and then there's like this fight, of course, going on, this war, and so I don't know where it's going to go, and I'm curious where this is. If this is in the past of the Cable that we've seen, or if it's something current. Well, is this where he's at? Because it's like, where is he at currently in Marvel? Did he go off somewhere and he's on this adventure now? I don't know. Then we have Daredevil, Unleash Hell. And I'm not loving this story. So it's Erica Schultz. I really like. I think she's a great writer. We have Elektra, which is cool, and it's also nice that this is a red band comic. So they're able to go violent if they need to. The thing I'm not crazy, or what I'm not digging is that we have Muse, but we don't necessarily have Muse. We have Muse is dead. Spoiler. But Muse is like in hell, and he's sort of inhabiting or possessing or inspiring whatever, like someone else, and then that's where like Elektra is getting pulled into it, and it just the whole idea, premise of what Muse is doing. Okay, whatever, it's fine, but so we'll see where this goes. Wolverine Deadpool #3. I really like the first issue. Second issue, I wasn't gung-ho about it. I ended up kind of skimming, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll give this one a shot. And it was like the same thing. I don't know, there's just something, it's weird, because, I do like Deadpool. I know some people are kind of like iffy with Deadpool, but yeah, it's just, as I was reading it, I'm just like, I'm not really feeling like in the mood for these two. And I think part of it is, when you put Wolverine and Deadpool together, there's certain things that are going to happen. You kind of can predict where it's going to go, and it's just like, this is just more of the same. So it was just hard for me to give it a shot. Eddie Brock Carnage #2. So this is getting interesting. I hate Carnage. Have I ever mentioned that before? I hate Carnage. So this is 2 months in a row I've read a friggin' Carnage comic, and I blame Charles Soule for that. Eddie Brock hosting Carnage? What? Why? And that's part of like the story, and that's part of the draw as well. Besides just Charles Soule writing. So it's like, what are you doing, Eddie Brock? Why are you here? And I don't know if this is from the Venom org that I did not read, because I'm just tired of Venom, and as well, I don't hate Venom as much as I hate Carnage. I don't know if I'd say I hate Venom, but I'm just kind of over Venom. But as a result of whatever, it's like Eddie Brock's with Carnage. And I don't know if because Dylan Brock, I don't know what happened with Dylan Brock. He's not with Venom. We don't know who is hosting Venom right now. That's the fun of that all new Venom comic. But it's like, does Dylan know that Eddie is with Carnage? Like, does anyone know? Because and the idea is Eddie is going to try to control Carnage and only allow, because Carnage needs to kill because he's an idiot. So he's going to try to control it, like seek those who deserve it. But I don't know about that. Then we have Exceptional X-Men, which is a X-Men hunt. But it's not a part, because I was like, wait, am I supposed to read this before this week's X-Force? This week's X-Force. The last part was an X-Factor last week. Am I supposed to read this before X-Force or after X-Force? I'm looking on the timeline thing. It's not really clear. This is called Collateral Damage, which is a bunch of crap. The only connection to X-Men Hunt is while Kitty and Emma are like training these kids, which I'm not super crazy about them, especially the dude on the cover. Is his name Axo? I don't remember his name. And Bobby comes in. Oh, I got to talk to you. Like Professor X, he broke out. And that's basically the connection, that he tells Emma and Kitty that Professor X is broke out of that jail thing. And that's it. The rest of this is, so this dude on the cover, they went to check out this company, and that dude on the cover is like this mutant. He's in charge. He's like the CEO of this company. Open mutant, obviously. And they're collecting data off this app. And at first he's like, isn't that kind of like violating their rights? If they're sending their DNA and stuff like that. But he's like, oh no, all stuff like that. It's like, can we trust him? Can we not? And and he's getting angry at the others. And it's like, okay, this guy's totally like, not necessarily stroking his ego, but like trying to say stuff that, like the things that he would want to say, like he's trying to turn him against the others, and it's just, and he's getting angry at them, and he's like rude to Emma And it's just like, then just go, if you think you got all the answers and you can be a mutant or whatever. And his ability, I don't even know exactly what his powers are. Like, he can find out things or get people to talk or something like that. And one of the things when he's talking to this dude that, they're helping him control his power, like turn it off. They're like, why would you ever want to turn it off? It was like, why wouldn't you? Why would you always? Because his problem is when people are opening up, he's like, he doesn't know if they're doing that willingly. Like, do people care about him, or why, or is it just the power is like, so, he doesn't know if anyone wants anything to do with him, basically. And it's just whatever, silly. Magic number 3. I gotta say, I really love the fact, so we have these J. Scott Campbell covers. I love his art. But what I really love is his wife, Tanya. She is Tanya Lehu. I don't know how you say it. I can't speak French or whatever. French Canadian. She's doing the colors, and she's doing. I mean, these covers are gorgeous. If you look at those covers, I really like this cover. Just like the glowing sword, and just like this thing in the back, like the colors, and this is shining, and we got Magic and Darkchild, and so I think it's awesome that they are a happily married couple, and they get to work together, and I think that's great. It makes me so happy. I don't know why. It just seems, I know there are other couples that work in that, but I think that's great. The comics are right. I do like Magic. There's something about her, and I don't know if it's like I feel bad, just like her upbringing or whatever, and being like the father of a daughter. It's like sometimes I gravitate towards certain characters. It's like, oh, I wish I could help them or protect them, because it's like I would hate for something like this to happen to my daughter when they're young and everything like that. Not that Magic needs any help or protection now, but there's that whole thing. So, but I really like Magic. She's so tough now, and I'm loving the dynamic between her and Juggernaut and the Jed McKay X-Men. But here they're dealing with this dude, like, kind of has sort of like kidnapped her and trying to do stuff, and it's just like, what is going on? And it's just kind of annoying, and yeah. So I don't know. Speaking of annoying, Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 31. The only thing I like about this, barely, is that this is continuing the Deadpool crossover. So there's some fun things in here. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But what is super ridiculous is the fact that Agent Gao, she was in that Cape Hunter whatever group. We're trying to, like, when vigilantes were illegal in New York, which is silly, and she just really wanted to get Miles Morales. She just had this hate against him. It's just so whatever. And then she just kept, started like getting closer and closer, like that line. She's about to cross, and then she's like straddling that line, and she crosses it, and she got fired. Well, they dismantled the whole unit, but she did some things that were ridiculous. So now she's continued to do some other stuff. I forgot who she was working with. She's working with some other villains, basically, and now she hired Deadpool to assassinate Miles Morales. It's like, really? You were basically like a police officer, like an agent of law or whatever, and now you're so angry, and so like there's this thing in the issue. So when Miles sees it's her, he's like, Agent Gao. He's like, what's with the fancy armor? Because she's got like this like, almost like, was it Zeus? What do you call it? Zeus god, Olympian god's armor, something like that. And basically, she's like, this is no one's doing but your Spider-Man. After you took the Cape Killers from me, I wasn't left with much, just as burning hatred and desire to see you put in your place. I was at my lowest, but then he offered me something no one else could. True power. All that he demanded in return, your head. So now, not only does she want to arrest him, then she wants him killed. Now she wants to, like, basically murder him and chop him up herself. And then the other thing that just drives me nuts about Miles Morales is then like shortly after, she's like, "Let us make war," and then, so they're about to fight each other. So what is Miles' response? Bet. I know bet. I do keep. I was gonna ask my students this. I was like, do people still say bet? Because this is something that I feel like came up. I don't know if it was like a year ago, maybe longer, but then I would hear some kids saying that, and I'm like what? And it's like they trying to make up new lingo. They probably saw it on TikTok or something like that, and then they just start using it. And I don't know if the idea is to be cool, because like a couple of my students use that. I'm like, and I'm try not to laugh because it sounds silly, and get off my lawn. I guess is that I'm turning into old man Tony that I can't handle. But it's just so every time you see Miles say bet, just like I feel like it was like a fad that faded away, and the writers are like, okay, this is what the kids are saying. They're saying bet. They're saying chat. Hey chat, what are we gonna do? It's like no. And the problem is because like if kids are still saying bet, are they still going to say bet in another year or 5 years? And then someone's going to read this back issue and like bet, like what is he going to bet her that she can't fight him? Oh, I got to remember to ask my kids if they still say bet. And is this supposed to be like want to bet? like no, you're not going to do that. Yeah, so we have that. There's New Champions number 3. So I didn't read issue 2. I was like, okay, I'm going to check out number 3 because we got is this Todd Knott cover, right? Yeah, and we have like the regular champions. We got Miles and Kamala, Ms. Marvel, Amadeus, and we got Viv Vision and Sam Alexander. So I was like, okay, I got to check this out. And then there's this thing where it's like they're fighting these new champions, all these stupid kids that came about, and some of them are from like the Spider-Woman series. I don't know. I guess it's a mini series because it wasn't a regular ongoing series. And these the characters in the Spider-Woman ones are basically like, there's like a Moon Knight kid, there's like a Ms. Marvel kid, there's like all these variations of existing heroes. And then in the first issue of this series, more of them kids came out of the woodwork somehow. They got this call, they were summoned, and we're like, wait, what? So they're fighting, and it's just so stupid. But some of it's because a hate monger is doing some stuff, and it's just like, oh. Then we have I'm not really happy with this week's comics, and is it Old Man Tony? Are people like loving this stuff, and it's just me? One World Under Doom number 2. It's so silly. So Dr. Doom stole he borrowed the Sorcerer Supreme stuff from Doctor Strange. And then he just didn't give it back. So now, after months, he's finally like making his moves, and he's like, "I'm going to be emperor of the world." And it looks like he's manipulating some world leaders to agree with that. And but he's doing other things too, like he's got the Doom Academy or whatever you want to call it, and it doesn't look like there's any strings attached. So people are trying to figure out like what's going on. We have the heroes, especially like Fantastic Four. They're all gung ho. It's like, no, we need to attack. He's going to. I don't know if it was. I don't remember if it was like the United Nations. He's going to go there, so we have to go attack him and show the world like who he really is and stuff. But it's like you're attacking him unprovoked, and because even if he's manipulated the leaders, it appears there are people who are supporting him. So we got some of that stuff going on. Valeria, she's talking. She calls her mom while they're out. She's like, "Oh, remember?" It was weird. She's like, "Remember Bentley 23 from Future Foundation?" And it's like, yeah. Why wouldn't she? That just seems like a weird question because they hung out and all that. She's like, "Well, he's having some trouble with this Doom stuff. So I was going to go visit. Can I use a teleporter to go to the city and talk to him?" She's like, "Okay." But she really goes, and she meets Doctor Doom because Doctor Doom's like her godfather, and Doom claims that he has no ill intent, and so. But basically, she's sneaking behind her parents' back to go talk to them, and she does questions like, "Okay, what are you doing?" type of thing. So it's on the cover. Is it on the cover? Yeah. So when you look at the cover, what's going on with the thing? And you see Doctor Doom's got his hand up. Ben is glowing. So I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but basically, while they're fighting, Ben ends up being human. It's like, okay, and then the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, they're like, we got to do something, and yeah, I don't know. It's just, where's this series going? We got Psylocke number 5. I didn't love this issue. So this is continuing. Psylocke, she's abducted by this dude, and basically, I think he's just kind of obsessed with her, wants to like add her to his collection type of thing, and so she has to fight her way out, and then she like obliterates him basically. So it's like, okay, Captain Sam Wilson, Captain America number 3. I didn't love this one. So we got these dudes with these floating cities, and they're manipulating people, and basically everyone's like kind of brainwashed, and yeah, we got to fight, right the party. Yeah, I didn't read TVA number 4. I'm just not feeling it. I love Spider-Gwen. I kind of like the idea, but it just seems weird. Yeah, this group of characters. I'm not reading Black Panther. I'm not reading Ultimate Black Panther. I'm not reading Ultimate X-Men. I'm not reading Werewolf by Night. Issue 8, I didn't realize it was that far. But then X-Force number 9. This was an X-Man hunt. And basically, like Sage, when she's like, she is like the biggest Professor X fan, because she's like, she owes him everything type of thing. So she's like, I'll do whatever you need. I'll help you and stuff like that. So basically, we find out like who kind of kidnapped Professor X at the end of X Factor last week, and so she kind of helped that happen type of thing. And yeah, so I don't know. That's Marvel. At DC, I didn't read everything, of course. There's Absolute Batman number 6, and there's some parts I'm getting a little confused as I'm reading this, and I don't know if I'm trying to read fast, so maybe I skip something so I can record the podcast. But so it's interesting the fact like it's a slightly different take on Batman, which makes it kind of cool. That's what the point of these Absolute books, that they're mixing things up. Here, one of the big things is Martha is alive. And they, weren't shot in an alley. It was like a totally different thing. Batman is being Batman, and it's like one of the things he does, because he's going after like Black Mask and his followers. He does this one move. It's just like, holy crap! Like, what does that mean? Like, what? So it's I'll just say it's kind of violent. So it's like, where is the line for Batman? And I guess I don't know if we know if it's clear cut at this point. So, and then it's weird. Spoiler, I'll just say, so Bruce, he's friends with a lot of villains. He's friends with like who the characters that would be like Killer Croc, Riddler. See who else? Killer Croc, Riddler. There's some other ones. And it's like I'm totally blank. I don't think Harvey. No, I don't think so. Maybe Harvey. No, I don't know. And it's Selena, definitely, right? What I'm doing is, the reason I'm getting all my comics mixed up, because there's Detective Comics, and then there's Batman and Robin, year 1. So I'm getting mixed up. And basically, Bruce tells one of his friends, who is in regular comics a villain, that he shares a secret, in a sense. So it's like, wait, where? Batman can't just be randomly beat. I mean, he does, but you got to be careful everyone finds out, then it's just like, what's going on? I mean, that was my huge problem with the Flash TV show, is that like everyone, so many people knew that Barry Allen was the Flash. Speaking of the Flash, we have Absolute Flash #1. So this is by Jeff Lemire. He does the writing, and yeah, it's definitely different because if you see in the cover, if you saw the previews that were like in the comics, everything, where it's Wally West. So it's like, what does that mean? Are we starting with Wally West as a Flash, or was Barry Allen already the Flash? Or does he even exist? But then we do see, oh no, Barry Allen is here, when we get like this sort of like a flashback. So things are, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this big crazy thing happens. So it's like, what? What are you doing? What does this mean? Yeah, so there's definitely some crazy stuff going on here. So the way I feel, I don't know if we need all these absolute books, and I know I don't have to get them, I don't have to read them, but it just seems weird because I saw we're gonna have, the new preview now is Absolute Martian Manhunter. We don't need more comics, but I guess we're getting more. Then we have Detective Comics 1095. So this is Tom Taylor and Mikhail Janin, and things are getting tense here. Basically, what has been happening recently what just happened is Bruce finds out that his father did surgery on Joe Chill shortly before he shot him. Joe got in a car accident and he went to the hospital, and then Thomas performed surgery on him. So it's basically like, if he didn't do that, if Joe didn't survive, then Thomas and Martha would still be alive. What has also been going on is Joe had I think it was a girlfriend in the car, and she was pregnant, and she just wanted to get away from Joe. So she, with the help of, I think it was Leslie. No, not Leslie. Maybe it was Martha. So Joe was basically told that the baby died, and she she wanted to get away. So that daughter is now in Gotham, and she grew up. I think she grew up with Leslie, or knowing Leslie. So it's, basically Bruce knew her, met her, had there's like some sort of friendship or connection, and but I don't think does she know? And I'm trying to remember if she knows that Joe Chill's her father. Bruce does not know. Dave recently hooked up, and she's also been using this new experimental procedure that rejuvenates you, makes you younger and stronger. Not younger necessarily, but there's some controversy over that. How is that working? So there's a lot of things coming in, and Bruce is wondering, was basically his parents targeted? Was it a random alley mugging, or was there something more going on? And he's just and Leslie's talking to him, and she's like, well, do you know where he's at? He's like, I know where he lives, I know where he drinks, I know where he eats, and I always know where he's at, type thing. And it's just oh my goodness. So he's gonna go talk to him. It's that could be dangerous. Then there is Nightwing 124. I'm not digging this current storyline, and no offense to Dan Waters. There's definitely some interesting things, but I wasn't feeling it in this issue, and we'll see where things go. Then there is a Batman Superman World's Finest. I didn't even check this out. I haven't been loving this series, even though it's Mark Waid. But yeah, I just didn't get a chance to read that. I should probably try checking it out. I did read Batman and Robin Year One. This is Mark Waid and Chris Samnee, and it's we're seeing Batman and Dick Grayson in the beginning, and Dick Grayson has such an attitude and everything like that. But I guess it's understandable and everything. So things get a little smoothed out, ironed out a little bit here. Titans 21, I haven't been keeping up with that. I don't even know what's going on. I should probably check that out. And, that's almost it. There's also the question along the Watchtower. There's Atana number 2. There's Challengers of the Unknown, Catwoman. I didn't read any of those. But I started reading Superman, The Last Days of Lex Luthor. So this is Mark Waid and Brian Hitch, I believe. But it's like a 50-page comic. It's like a black label. I'm pretty sure it was a black label, right? I don't have it in front of me. And I started reading. I got like maybe a little more than halfway through, like maybe almost 3/4. So basically, Lex Luthor's dying. Will Superman help him? And like what's going to happen? And obviously Superman will help him. There's a little more to it than that. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I don't know what I should say. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but I'm curious. I need to finish reading that. But I am finished with this week's coverage of comics, barely. That is going to be comics. I apologize for not reading everything, but that's comics for the week. All right, Severance Season 2, Episode 9, The After Hours. And what scares me is there's only one more episode after this. So actually, by the time you are listening to this, it's out there. It's done. The second season's over. Now we have to wait for Season 3. But I still have one more as I'm recording this. So The After Hours, it's like, what the heck is going on? It's like things are just jumping forward. And I mean, it starts off, someone's like swimming laps. There's like a clock. It's like, are they being timed? What's going on? It's this big fancy pool, and you see like outside big snowy woods. So it's like, wait, is that Helly? Or it's Helena, not Helly. So she goes up to, she's dressed. She goes to see like her father afterwards. She's like, Father? And he's like, a momentous day. And she's like, yes. So she sits at a table, and she's like, won't you eat? He's like, I'll watch. Because he's just this creepy dude. It's like, well, what's going on? And he pours himself some tea or something like that. So she puts like a hard-boiled egg in this like slicer thing. And then she has this like fancy plate that like, slices it up. And the plate is kind of weird. It's like 2 white-haired kids, and they're like holding down another in a chair or something like that. And they're like wearing like gowns or something like that. So he sits, she arranges like the 6 slices like evenly on a plate. And then she's like slicing a little tiny piece like of a fork and eating it with, she's eating a hard-boiled egg with a fork and knife. And then he's like, we're seeing to Mr. Bailiff. And what's interesting is when I first watched this, as like Mr. Bailiff, I didn't even think about who that is. So you're probably like, yeah, of course we know who that is. We'll talk about it at the end. So he's like watching her slice the egg pieces into tiny bits. And he's like, I wish you'd take them raw. Which is like, why? I don't know why. Why would he want her to eat raw eggs? So then she's riding in the back of like a big car, and we see like the sprawling estates. There's like woods, there's like a lake, and all this stuff. And then it's weird as the camera's like panning forward. There's like big looming water towers. Like, really, that's on the property? I was like, okay. And then it cuts to the next scene. I think actually it might have been like the intro then, but then you hear Milchek unveil. So then like a cover, like a blanket, not blanket, like a scarf, or handkerchief or something is pulled off, and we see a bust is shown, and then Mr. Milchek's like, Eustace Huang. So we see Miss Huang. So her name is Eustace. We didn't know that. Eustace Huang, today marks the end of your Wintertide Fellowship. So he's sitting at the far end of a conference table. Congratulations. Your bed will be moved from your parents' home to the Gunnel Egan Empathy Center in Svalbard. So that's weird. But this is after seeing the Miss Cobell episode and just like what they're talking about, like, kids work in the factory. So it makes sense. The big thing is, why is Miss Huang, why is a kid working there? So she must have been selected for whatever reason. And I guess they're big believers on child labor or like starting them young or whatever. So her bed is going to be moved from her parents' home. But then we see that the bus is similar to the one that Cobell had, and the plaque says Lumen, James Egan, Wintertide Fellowship, Eustace Wong, Year of Vision. So then so her bed's gonna be moved to the Gunnell Egan Empathy Center in Svalbard, where you will work to steward global reforms. And she's like, I thought I'd be finishing the quarter. He's like, empathy awaits, fellow Wing. And, it's obviously he's trying to get rid of her because he's mad at her. Is he petty? I don't know. You may resume your duties for today. A shuttle will pick you up at dusk. He stands, but first, lay the game on a table. So she puts like the water ring game that she was playing with before, where you push a button. There's a dude in an old-timey bathing suit with his hands like up, like he's diving, and you hit the button and then shoots air through there. The rings float, and it has to land on his hands. So he's like, lay in front of her. The handbook requires that you mark this betterment with a material sacrifice. I have chosen your ring toss game as a proper totem. So he lays out like a handkerchief, another handkerchief, or maybe it's the same one. He places the game on the center. She stands and picks up the bus, smashes the game again. It's like sad because like the little dude in there is like getting all smashed up. At Daryl's place, the TV's on. Dylan's wife Gretchen, she says that Asher picked up the kids. He's like, great, or something like that. She's wearing some sort of like blue shirt. It's like a security shirt, like a bus driver. I don't know what it is. There's like some patch on the shoulder. Dylan's also in the kitchen, or he's like outstanding or something. And he's making a drink or something, putting stuff in a blender. And then she's like, I kissed your innie. And he turns. He's like, beg pardon? She's like, I saw your innie again at Lumen, and right before I left, we ended up kissing for about a minute. And he's like, what? Because he always says, what? She's like, I'm sorry. He's like, how? What the fudge? Like, and she's like, and he's like, it didn't what? It didn't mean anything? She's like, I wasn't going to say that. He's like, wow. And he turns, she's like, yeah. She's like, you've been adrift. You know that. And he like dumps the veggies or whatever he had in the blender in the sink. He's like, this is so many fudging dimensions of fudged. And she's like, he reminds me of how you used to be. And he's like, okay. And then he's putting like his suit jacket on because he's going to leave. She's like, Dylan, he's like, I'm going to go to work and earn a paycheck to feed our children. And she's like, well, he's like, and I'm going to respectfully request that you don't follow me there and use my own body to fudge and cheat on me. She's like, don't leave. He's like, you know what? Since I would have no way of knowing if it's happening or not, I don't know, maybe I just go quit. And it's like, okay, because he's so skilled in other areas, right? He couldn't keep a job. He spends money on silly, expensive, like scuba lessons and that. And he's complaining that he's working to put food on the table or to feed the kids. He's like, maybe I go in and I quit and just end his existence. Yeah, how about that? And he like walks out. So it's like, what? Come on, Dylan. Irving enters his apartment, and we see his dog Radar just like sitting there in the living room, like staring at something. And at first it's like, is he staring at a painting? What's going on? So Irving walks slowly and sees it's Bert. Bert is like sitting in the shadows, like reading. And Irving's like, Bert? And Bert's like, they may be also connected to several recent disappearances or deaths. Goodman may have participated as a low-level Lumen office enforcer or goon. And he like chuckles because he's like reading the forms. So Goodman may have participated as a low-level Lumen enforcer. So he's talking about Bert Goodman. He was a low-level Lumen enforcer or goon. And so Bert chuckles. He's like, Lumen goon. He's like, that stings. He's like, we never use words like that. With Lumen, it's very specific language. And Irving's like, that was before. I know now that I was wrong. I know you're not with them. And then Bert's like, would you go for a ride with me? And he's like, Bert, I'm sorry. He gets up. He's like, go for a ride with me. So it's like, what does that mean? Then we get like an overhead shot of Lumen. But it's like, what I was thinking about, there's like 4 parking lots and they're huge and they're full. So it's like, how many people are working there? And that's the weird thing that we don't know. There's multiple floors, but it's like the severed floor, we only seen there's 4 people in the micro data, the refiners. There's all those goat people. So, there's a bunch of people over there. It's like, how big is that floor? But it's like, is there anyone else? There's what's it, the ORD or whatever. And I guess there's some people there. So maybe there is more, but it's like, there's a lot of people. So we see the white halls of like Miss Casey, it's like Gemma's level. And then there's this, we see the watcher's room. So there's one dude sitting there, the screen flickers to like Gemma sitting at a table, then it changes to like a data screen, and it's like Cold Harbor, 96%. He opens a drawer and he picks up a phone, and it's Drummond, he answers. He's like, yes. And the guy's like, it's 9 o'clock, and the numbers aren't moving. Milchick's in his office, and his phone rings, and so Drummond's called him. He's like, the numbers aren't moving. And Milchick's like, he may just be running late. And the final quota was promised today. Get him here now. Then we see Helly exits the elevator, and she like looks around. At first it's like, wait, is this Helly or Helena? So she arrives at the MDR office, and it's dark. And she's like, hello, Mark? She turns on the lights. No one's there. So Mark is in a car leaning against the window. Devin's like, do you know where you are? He's like, I'm fine. And she's like, all right, where are you? He's like, smelly fudging car. And she's like, that's nice. And how about me? Am I me or am I a copy machine? And Mark's like, tragically, you're you. And he like coughs a bit. And he's like, this is a mistake. And she's like, I'm sorry. The wind was whistling over the hole in the back of your skull, so I didn't quite get that. He's like, did you just call my plan a fudging mistake? And Mark's like, we told her everything, and she told us poop. We can't trust her. She's like, yeah. He's like, this is it. So they're on this like narrow road, like in the middle of this like snowy trees and that. She pulls off and she drives like through the trees. Like you can barely see a path there. And then she's like, looks like she's not here yet. And Mark's like, I mean, what if it's a trap? And Devin's like, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But we fudging need her. So his phone buzzes. You see it's Milchick Lumen. And he like looks at it. He looks at Devin. And she's like, don't answer it. And they just sit there until it stops. Helly strides into Milchick's office and walks right in. She's like, where's Mark? And he's like, excuse me. She's like, this is the second day in a row he's not here. Is he coming in? Non-disclosure policy forbids. And Helly's like, he had a nosebleed before. Is he okay? And Milchick's like, why? And she's like, why? Why? And she's like, he's department chief? And Milchick's like, Dylan is, and Mark's absent. And then she's like, kind of like you and Cobell. And he like looks up at her. And she like, replace one part with another. That's enough, Helly R. And she like steps forward to his desk, like tilts her head. She's like, don't you mean Helly E? And Milchick's like, he pauses for a second. He's like, Helena Egan is my employer. You are my subordinate. And this behavior constitute insubordination. And she's like, yeah, no poop. And then she turns and walks out. He's like, leave it open, but she shuts the door. Gretchen she sits with Dylan G, and she's like, I told you about us. And Dylan G, he's like, what? She's like, I told my husband about you and me this morning. And Dylan G's like, was he glad for us? And she's like, no. And Dylan G's like, well, he should be, because I'm making you happy. She's like, I know. And Dylan's like, and he's not. And she's like, I can't see you anymore. He threatened to quit. And I don't know if he's still going to, but maybe if I tell him that this is over. And Dylan G's like, no, hold on. She's like, this is all my fault. I never should have come here. And Dylan is like, wait, Gretchen, my life started when you came here. She's like, that's not true. You have so much going for you. And Dylan's like, no, I have nothing else. I have this, and I have fudging pencil erasers. She's like, I'm sorry, I have to go. He's like, no, wait. And he gets like on a knee. He's like, Gretchen G. And she's like, oh my God. He's like, I love you. And I know I'm just an innie, but I love you all the way. I do. So he's holding something up. He's like, Gretchen, I made this for you. He's like, I can give you a life, please. And she like wipes tears and she looks at him, and because he made her like a ring. She's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, Gretchen. She like, because she left. And he like just stays on his knees, looks at the paper ring he made. So later he's sitting in a snack area, like looking at the ring, and Helly's like, you should keep it. Give it to someone you meet down here. And he's like, it's just O&D and the goat people. And she's like, that we know of. And Dylan's like, she's my wife. And Helen is like, or Helly's like, she's not your wife because no one would treat someone they love the way she's treating you. Like all the Audis treat us, like everything's for them. And he's like, okay, well, what the fudge is there to do about it? At the end of the day, we're still stuck down here with no lives and no family. And she's like, Irving was your family. And she's like, dude. And Hallie's like, and he left you a message, the black hallway. It's like, I don't know if he knew where it leads, but he thought it was important. And they convince you to turn your back on him for some Audi woman you don't even know. And then Dylan's like, you know it's your fault. We're down here at all, right? And she's like, no, it's not. And Dylan's like, and if we're so different from our Audis, then how come we couldn't tell when you were gone? And she's like, Irving could. And then Dylan's like, Mark couldn't. And she's like, doesn't have anything to say. He's like, sorry, guess I'm an a-hole down here too. And he gets up and walks out. I mean, that was a low blow. It's like, okay, you're upset, so you're lashing out. Cobell is driving a truck down a narrow road and pulls up to Mark and Devin like at that off the side of the road. She gets out. She looks at them. Hello, Mark. How are you? And Mark's like, oh my God. He's like, so good. My wife's being held prisoner at Lumen, and I just got brain surgery in my basement. How have you been? She's like, we're allies now. There's no need to. He's like, oh, we're allies now? We're not neighbors anymore? Sorry, I guess I'm confused. And Devin's like, can you, the birthing cabins, can you take us, you can take us there, right? So we can talk to his innie? And she's like, not yet. Even under the cover of dark, it's perilous. We wait for night. And Mark's like, it's perilous. Oh, okay. Devin's like, you want us to wait until the evening? And Cobell's like, we don't even know if he's completed the file yet. I assume no. And Mark's like, what file? And she like pauses and she's like, Cold Harbor. And if you've completed it, well. And Mark's like, well, what? She's already dead. And Mark's like, she better be fudging alive. She's like, no, fudge this. We're leaving right now. And Devin's like, hold on, wait, Mark. And she's like, I'm trying to help you. And Devin's like, Mark. And Mark's like, she's in there, and we're out here in the middle of fudging nowhere. Devin's like, I know, and we're going to get her out. But listen, that's what we're doing here, right? And she's like, call Mr. Milchek. Tell him you're unwell and won't be coming in today. Do it now. And he's like, oh my God. If he smells chicanery, he'll lock you out of the building. And Mark's like, how about fudge off? How about that? And Devin's like, wait, Mark. He's like, fudge that. No fudging way. And Devin's like, listen to me. And he's like, absolutely not. Do you have any idea how insane this is? And Devin's like, yes, I do. And he's like, do you know what she did? And Devin's like, Mark, listen to me. Listen to me. Take a breath. No, I can't. We can't do it. And Devin's like, Mark, there is literally no other option than to do what the fudge she says right now for Gemma. And he's like, doesn't say anything. And then he's like, she knows where she is, Mark. Helly walks down the hall. She goes to the new break room, goes to the hang in there picture, searches the back, and then the note like with the directions falls out. Dylan's walking. So then it starts cutting the different like scenes. Helly sees the picture drawing, reads the directions. Dylan's like, fudge this place. He turns around. Irving sitting in the passenger seat with radar in the back seat as Bert drives down a narrow road. It's like, are they all like that? Bert's like, I never hurt anyone. I want you to know that. I drove people places. I didn't ask what happened to them once they get there. And Irving's like, is that what today is? But Bert doesn't answer. Dylan G is filling out an any resignation request, and he checks all the boxes for reasons why: boredom, anger, loneliness, shame, fatigue, guilt, annoyance. Mr. Milchek and Miss Huang are watching him fill it out, and then he's like, I'm sure you know this is very disappointing and reeks of ingratitude. But then Dylan just like drops the pen. Done. Anything else? And he's like, key card. Milchek holds out his hand, but Dylan, because Dylan is such an a-hole, he just drops it on a desk instead of putting it in Milchek's hand. So they just like stare at each other. Milchek leans back in his seat. Please report to the elevator and wait. So he's going to make him sit there and wait. And then Miss Huang's like, I'm sorry, Dylan G. I should have facilitated better. And Milchick's like, that's enough. But Dylan's at the door. He's like, it's not your fault. And he walks out. Drummond then later is talking to Milchick. And it's an interesting, they're like up on a balcony, and it's like interesting camera angle. It's because Drummond's like, you see his upper like torso practically, like his shoulders. But Milchick, I don't think he's that much shorter to him. He's like, you just almost see his head, the way it's like angled. So he's like, Drummond's like, so this is tightening the leash, our most vital refiner missing in the wind on what has to be Lumen's finest day. This is your fault. Which is so stupid. Milchick's like, I have followed protocol, Mr. Drummond, but I thank you for your remonstration. And he's like, a needless complex word for a simple idea. Apologize for the word. And Milchick's like, sir? He's like, apologize for the word. So Milchick's like, I apologize. And then Drummond's like, shorter. And Milchick's like, I'm sorry. Again, Mr. Drummond, again. Then he's like, devour feculence. It means eat poop, Mr. Drummond. And he's like, what did you just say to me? And Milchick's like, I am manager of the severed floor, which means two things. First, I am owed a measure of respect, even by my superiors. Second, and more obvious, that said floor comprises my whole jurisdiction. To put that monosyllabically, it's not my fault what Mark Scout does when he is not at work. It's yours. And he just turns and walks away. But it's like, go Milchick. Like, I'm not necessarily the biggest Milchick fan always, but Drummond's like, screw you, man. Cobell's standing in the woods. Mark's like a little ways away, like thinking, and then he makes a call. So you hear like the phone ring. Milchick answers in his office, like on a fourth ring. Mr. Scout, where are you? And so I was like, how do you know it was him? He's like, is it the only person that has that number? And Mark's like, well, I was worried about these nosebleeds, so we drove to this clinic out in Soil Hill, and they want to do a few more tests. And Milchick's like, let me send a car. You are a priority employee, and you should be under Lumen care. May I get your exact location? And Mark's like, he's like, Mr. Scout? And he's like, I'm not sick. I just needed a day, okay? And, may I ask why? And Mark's like, no, I just got life stuff. Isn't that what Lumen's all about? Balance? I mean, work is just work, right? Do you know what I mean, Mr. Milchick? Like, Mr. Milchick? And he's like staring at this painting over his desk. And then he's just like, I have your word you report to work tomorrow? And Mark's like, you do? Yeah, I'll be there, I promise. Good, and thank you for calling. So Bert and Irving arrive at a train station. Bert gets a ticket. Then he tells Irving, this line goes as far as you can go. I can't know where you get off, and you can never come back to Kier. Do you understand? And Irving's like, no. He's like, won't Lumen come after you? So this is what bailiff, it's Irving bailiff. I was like, duh. I totally forgot that. So Kelly's dad's like, we're dealing with the bailiff, with Mr. Bailiff. So probably because he almost drowned Helena, they're gonna like take him out. And what does that mean? Because what did Bert do when he took these people? I mean, did they basically kill them? Like, just make them sleep with the fishes? I don't know. But then Bert's like, he's basically, he's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's telling Irving to get on a train, get off somewhere, don't come back. So he's like, won't they come after you? And then Bert's like, you asked me why I severed. I like the idea that I could be innocent again, part of me. But then my innocent part fell in love with you. And Irving's like, I want to remember it. And Bert's like, probably better that we don't. And Irving's like, I've never been loved before. Not really. Bert's like, well, now you have. How does it feel? And he's like, I don't know. And it's like, don't you want to know how it felt? And Bert's like, it's not possible. And Irving's like, Bert? He's like, it's okay. Just go. And Irving's like, I've never had this. And Bert's like, I know. And Irving's like, my whole life. And Bert's like, I know. And Irving's like, I want to. I want to have it. He's like, Irving. He's like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And he's like leaning closer. Their foreheads are practically touching. I'm ready. But then Bert's like, we can't. We can't. We can't. And Bert, he just like puts out his hands like to shake. He's like, bon voyage, buddy. And Irving's like, Bert. And he puts his palm like on Bert's cheek. He's like, goodbye. And then we see Irving walks away with Radar. Bert kind of like steps out, like watches him head towards like the boarding area. Then Irving goes through the doors. At Lubin Dylan G's sitting, waiting by the elevator. We see Miss Huang. She's standing outside. She's all dressed up, got a big earmuff. She's got a little pack bag, and this like a shuttle bus is like pulling up. Irving finds a seat on a train. Radar sits by the window. The train departs. Bert's like sitting on one of the benches in the train station. Radar kind of whines a little bit when he looks at Irving because he probably knows Irving's a little sad or something. The elevator door opens for Dylan. I don't know who opened it. The shuttle bus pulls up to Miss Huang. She gets in. Dylan gets in the elevator. So it's like, so basically what we need to realize, by him quitting, he's killing himself. In a sense, he's like committing suicide, because if he doesn't go back to work, he doesn't exist anymore. There's no existence. So he gets in the elevator. So it's like, is this the end for him? Bert stands up from the bench. Irving's on the train. He kind of smiles. The elevator doors close on Dylan, I guess for the last time. Train goes on the tracks, headed like into the mountains and the sunset. It's like all kind of barren around there. But then the shot kind of flickers. Does like the whining noise or whatever to like a dark hallway. But then we see Mark, Devin, and Cobell are still out in the woods. So I guess they've been waiting for dusk. It's like, night getting darker. Mark gets in the back of the truck. They put him under the tarp. Then we see like down a dark hallway. There's an elevator door. Red light goes on with the arrow pointing down. But it's like we don't see anyone there. So is that it's not Helly, because Helly is memorizing the directions and that other like empty office where she and Mark like hooked up. And then you see someone standing behind her in a doorway, and it's like out of focus. You can't see who it is. But then after a bit, we see it's Helena's father. So it's like, what the heck is he doing on the severed floor? And he's like, you tricked me. And she kind of gets startled, and she pushes the directions like under the keyboard. And he's like, my Helly. And she's like, just looks at him. She's like, what the fudge? Because she has no idea who he is. Cobell is driving while Mark lays in the back. She pulls up to like, security type entrance, something like that. There's a woman, like security guard, shines a, flashlight. And Cobell's like, we're going to Cottage 5. And the guard's like, I don't have anyone scheduled. So then Harmony kind of leans forwards. She's one of James. No one's to know. Talking about Devin in the passenger seat. So the guard kind of shines a light at Devin. And then Cobell's like, Miss Marcia White, 9th floor. And so the guard kind of puts the light down. And she's like, specialties department. It's like, what does that mean? And does like James have women brought in all the time? I don't even want to think about like why he would have them brought in. So Cobell's like, I'm looking for a gold thimble. What the heck does that mean? A gold thimble? So they're allowed to drive through. Then we see Mark lying, but then the camera kind of shifts and it severs. So then Mark is sitting up and Devin's in front of him. And she's like, hi, Mark. And he's like confused. He looks down at his clothes. He's like, wait, what? And Devin's like, you're okay. You're fine. And he gets up, heads towards the door. And Devin's like, no. He's like, if you walk out that door, he's just going to come right back in again. And he's like, what is this? And Devin's like, it's going to be okay. Can you want to walk with me? And she's like, sorry, just come with me. You're good, yeah? So they go upstairs and he's like, are you my, and Devin's like, she just wanted to talk. So upstairs, Cobell's standing like in this big room. There's a fireplace behind her, so it's kind of like shining. It's almost like silhouetting her. It's like a dramatic shot or something like that. And Devin's like, do you remember the last thing you said to me? So he looks at Devin, then he looks at Cobell, and he's like, she's alive. And then there's like this weird cut to like Cobell, and then the music suddenly starts getting like loud and dramatic, and it's like that was like a weird it was like a shot of her, and then boom, dramatic music. That's the end. I was like, okay, that's it. And we only have one more episode. So how are they going to end this? Like what? And the fact that it's at 96%, that's crazy. And if they finish it, Gemma's going to die? Huh. All right, that's Severance. One more. All right, and now Daredevil, Born Again. Season 1, Episode 4. Sic Semper Systema. So I'm not going to lie. I was like, Sic Semper, because it's like, what does that mean? So I don't know Latin. Looking it up, it roughly means, according to the internet, thus always to the system. There are multiple things we can read into its use. One of the best Disney... Well, that's weird. Okay. I'm trying to see it. Was that Wikipedia? Because Sic Semper... No, this is from Wikipedia. Sic Semper... maybe that's Sic Semper Tyrannus. Thus always to tyrants. So Sic Semper System... Whatever. So we have another episode of Daredevil. And what's interesting, I kind of joked about this. I don't know if it was on podcast or just when I was talking about it. But it's like, this isn't really a Daredevil show. This is a Matt Murdock show. We had Daredevil for 15 minutes in the first episode, and that's it. And so we're at episode 4. How many episodes are in the season? I forget. Anyways, will we see him this episode? It starts off, man. Can we take a moment, a brief moment for last week's episode? That was rough. I mean, rip, White Tiger, and I didn't realize. I feel like a dope. I didn't realize that the actor actually did pass away. That he was. I didn't even look it up, but he was going through something, and it was like he was in pain, and he was like fighting to, he wanted to finish this because it was important. So man, I mean. It's so sad. It's sad on two levels. So with this one, it starts off, we see a phone, a wallet, a watch, like a switchblade, knife, keys, wedding ring. They're all put into like evidence bag. I'm assuming at like the coroner's office morgue. And then you also see like a mask and pendant being put in the bag. So my question is like, what's the deal with this pendant? I'm not a White Tiger expert. I've read comics with White Tiger, with both versions of White Tigers. Spoilers, maybe. And I don't really know how this pendant works. Is it mystical? Does it work on anyone? So like if Matt put it on, or if Kirsten put it on, or Wilson Fisk put it on, are they going to get White Tiger powers or whatever? I don't know. So it's like, where's this going to go? Because if it's at the police station, it feels like, I mean, he talked about, Hector mentioned, being on the subway station without his pendant. And so he's basically saying that pendant gives him his powers, or gives him powers, or strength, or something. So you got to be careful with that. But maybe we get an answer. I wasn't really quite sure. So Matt goes to the police station, and so he's talking to the coroner, and he's like, sorry about your client. And Matt's like, me too. He's like, so, 9mm to temple, execution style, no room for error, what else? And the coroner's like, the right side, marginal abrasion, external bevel on the entrance wound, exit wound has skin tears and raised skull fragments. Matt's like, projectile? And the coroner's like, not recovered. High velocity, jacketed, maybe even custom. So Matt's like, single kill shot at extreme close range, and no one found the casing. And then the dude's like, hey, if it's not on the body, it's not my problem. So then Matt listens, he hears like a door open, footsteps approach, and then this girl comes in the hallway. Coroner's like, how'd you get in here? And she's like, I want to see my uncle, Hector Ayala. And the coroner sighs, he's like, you're not supposed to be here. And Matt's like, it's okay. He's like, Angela? He's like, he's right. And she's like, you got him out of jail? A lot of good that did him, huh? And she's like, I want to see my Tio. I want to see what they did to him. And Matt's like, you don't. Trust me. It's best you remember Hector the way he was. He's like, come on, let's go. And then, so at this point, it looks like Matt might have the personal effects, because, he has like almost like a airtight bag, like they suck the air. I forget what they call it when they do that. Is he, because he was a lawyer, is he taking it to Soledad, his wife? But Hector's niece takes his arm and she kind of walks with him. But then like a little ways, she like stops. She's like, they killed him, didn't they? The police. And Matt like sighs. He's like, we don't know. We don't know that, Angela. And then like her voice, she kind of whispers, voice shaking. She's like, come on. She's like, you're a lawyer. You ain't dumb. He got in the middle of something, busted up a fight with the mask off. A-hole cops were dirty. You got him out of jail. They put a bullet through his head. He's like, you don't got to be good at math to put one and one together, And he's like, I know. He's like, I'm sorry. She's like, I hate them, Mr. Murdoch. I hate the city. No one's doing anything about it, and no one's ever going to do anything about it because he was just Hector from the Heights, and they're the fudging cops. And she starts crying, and then she actually like hugs him, which was nice that she feel that he's able to comfort her. She's like, it's not fair. It's not fair. He's like, I know. He's like, it's okay. It's okay. He's like, look here. He's like, listen to me. You have to believe that someone will find his killer. Okay. We have to believe it. He's like, you understand? And he takes her in his arms again. And we see some street shots. We see like the Kingpin graffiti like mural, and there's like the skull, whatever Punisher's like triggered, at the top. And then we finally see Muse, so he has a white mask and there's kind of like almost like blood or whatever, or something just dripping out of his eyes. And he's like carrying an unconscious body like over his shoulder, kind of like fireman style. Is that what it is? Then it cuts to a bar, loud music, like shots. BB, I think it's BB. She's like buying some shots. She tries getting Daniel to have one. He's like, I can't. He's like, I have to take off. And she's like, Fisk is riding you too hard. It's like, you have to be in by 8. And he's like 7, actually. So I think he's joking. And then she like lists a routine, like working, getting ready, and stuff like that. She's like, what kind of life is that? And he's like, I love the guy, like this afternoon, we were supposed to meet with Clean Green. It's this new tech company with this dope recycling idea, And she's like, recycling idea is cool. Or I think she said that, because there's like another girl there. And he's like, it would actually decrease garbage output, blah, 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 all this stuff like that. So then, maybe here's, and I think BB's friend's like, it's like, if we're not drinking, can we at least get some food? And Daniel tries saying no. He goes outside, with them. He keeps saying no, and he's like, "Stop making me feel guilty." They put him in a cab. So I don't know what else. I don't remember what else he said, but there's maybe a little more when he's talking about this whatever Clean Green stuff. But right across the street, we see a squad car like pulls up. There's this dude sitting on a curb next to an officer. The officer offers the new one there. He's like, you want butter toffee or caramel with peanuts? And the guy cuffs. He's like, you can't eat those. And then the new officer is like, are they evidence? And the other guy's like, nah. He's like, those boxes are evidence. He's like, I paid for this poop. So they put the dude in the squad car. Then we see Matt. He's on the roof of his building. He has his Daredevil horn that he keeps like kind of fiddling with. He gets an incoming call from Kirsten. She's calling to ask, how is he? She heard that, Hector's niece came to the morgue, and he's like, yeah, it was pretty rough. And she asks if he's like, no, God, no kid should see that. And she's like, okay, this is terrible timing, but I need you downtown today. He's like, understand. He's like, we'll post for another associate. And she's like, no, the revolver is too low. I'm not sure what she meant by that. He's like, well, I'm working on that too. Already set a bunch of meetings, some meetings with a bunch of banks or something like that. And she's like, well, or say what you will about big firms, but you never have to worry about money or money problems or something like that. And she's like, but you're going to like this one. It's Leroy Bradford from the city docket. She's like, I'm underwater on this Madison case, and we owe them a freebie this month. She's like, can you just meet him down in detention? And he's like, you had me at freebie. So he likes doing pro bono cases, I guess. So then there's another therapy session for Wilson and Vanessa. Heather's like, I thought we might spend some time on something we need to get out into the open. Until we explore this, we can't really make any progress. And Vanessa's like, Adam. And Wilson's like, I'd rather not. And Heather, Dr. Glenn, she's like, I understand, but I would urge you to sit in the discomfort, and maybe just for a moment we can acknowledge the affair. And he's like, that's a ridiculous term. Not a dinner party. It was a betrayal. And Vanessa like scoffs. She's like, you were gone. I didn't know when or if you were ever coming back. He's like, you knew. You know me. You know I wouldn't stay away. And she's like, you left. That was a betrayal. He's like, you know why? And Heather's like, let's let Vanessa speak for a moment. Tell me about Adam. And she's like, are you asking for details? And she's like, no, I'm curious about you. What were you feeling? Why him? So she sighs, and she's like, it was his hands. His hands drew beautiful sketches. I mean, just, can we not? She's like, it was like finding a clay at a garage sales. Mostly it's like some art. I forget what it was. I never heard of it. It's like, it was just, he wasn't part of my husband's world. And Heather's like, and what world is that? Politics? They both like together, like business. She's like, I see. Heather's like, and she's like, has infidelity been a part of your marriage before this? And Fisk is like, absolutely not, never. And then Vanessa scoffs. She's like, you left, which felt like taking half of me away. And then Heather's like, did that trigger something for you, Vanessa? And she's like, my father, he was in textiles. He would leave for weeks at a time. He drank, he gambled. His behavior ate at my mother, crushed her. I never respected her for that. I needed to feel alive, not crushed down. When you left, you hurt me. He's like, you never told me. And she's like, I never had a reason to. So then Heather's like, I assume you want to move forward from this. Did you end the affair? And Vanessa's like, I never had the opportunity. And Heather's like, why not? Did something happen? Wilson, did you confront this man? Yes, we had a dialogue. And Heather's like, what kind of dialogue? A clarifying one. And Heather's like, would you like to be more specific? No. And then Vanessa's like, oh, so that's what we're doing here? This is just window dressing? I know you. Your methods are much more direct. He's like, no, they were, not now. It was a conversation, that's all. There was no expression of ill intent. I did tell him how I felt about you, about our marriage, and I told him that I couldn't fathom a life of meeting without you. And Heather's like, and where's Adam now? And they're both like, I don't know. So then Heather's like, I want to go back to the first question I asked you during our intake. Are we here to dissolve a marriage or preserve one? I want you to think about it, really think about it before I see you again. Without forgiveness, and I say this to both of you, there can be no real healing. Forgiveness isn't just the highest act of love, it's the only way forward. Good work today. So they get up, and they're like walking towards the door. And she's like, if you two don't mind, I'd love to speak to Vanessa alone, just for a moment, just the two of us. So Fisk he's like, okay, he just steps out. And then Vanessa's like, is something wrong, Dr. Glenn? And Heather's like, I'm not sure. Based on the nature of our discussion today, I feel obligated to ask, do you feel safe in your marriage? And Vanessa's like, oh, you think? How sweet of you. And she chuckles softly. It's like, my husband is capable of many, many things, some of them extreme. Harming me is not one of them. Then we see a BB report. Someone says, just like this older guy, he says, Mayor Fisk might be a nice guy, but he thinks that he's in over his head. He's like, vigilantes, love them. He's like, should have had that a long time ago. They're the only people that can solve the problems in New York. I wish I could be a vigilante. I'd be out there too. So Matt goes to the station, talk to Leroy Bradford. He goes to lock up, and he's like, calls out, like, yells out his name. So then Leroy's, he really bothered me. He's like, man, look at this. I get the freaking blind dude. And the other guys laugh. And Matt's like, let's go. And then Leroy scoffs as he's walking out. He's like, bring on the blind justice. So then they're in this interview room. And they're kind of like, they're still separated. So there's like a little, both sides, there's like a window and a wall. And there's kind of like a little like opening in like a grate. So Matt's like, Mr. Bradford, my name is Matthew Murdoch. I'm going to be your lawyer. He's like, lucky me. And Matt's like, as I understand it, you've been charged with petty larceny, a Class A misdemeanor. The complaint against you alleges you stole approximately 5 boxes of fiddle faddle from a bodega. And he's like, well, I didn't do it. And Matt's like, okay. And he's like, I said I didn't do that poop. And Matt's like, I understand. The thing is, the bodega where this allegedly occurred has a surveillance system involving many cameras. And then Leroy kind of looks dejected. It's like, oh. And Matt's like, they've already turned over to the prosecution footage, which they claim shows you stealing the items. In addition, the cashier is willing to testify she was an eyewitness to the whole thing. And the store security guard will testify that when he detained you, you were in possession of multiple boxes of fiddle faddle caramel corn. And he's like, and finally, the police will corroborate that several boxes of the caramel corn were recovered outside of the store. And he's like, look, I paid for that poop last week. And Matt's like, unfortunately, it doesn't really work like that, Mr. Bradford. Generally, you pay for what you buy that day. He's like, they all lying on me then. He's like, you hear me? He's like, also, I saw them cops eating 2 boxes of that poop. And Matt's like, now that I'm entirely willing to believe. He's like, then how come they don't arrest themselves for stealing? Matt's like, maybe they should. Or maybe they should have. He's like, but the complexity of that aside, we're here because they arrested you. He's like, could it have been a scroll? And Matt's just like, nope. He's like, and the bigger problem we have is your rap sheet. He's like, man, how come you guys always bring that up? It's like, what I did back then ain't got nothing to do with this. And Matt's like, that's true, but when a judge sees a sheet like yours, 20, 25 pages of offensive, drugs, trespassing, panhandling, petty larceny, not to mention the 4 separate cases where you failed to appear in court and they had to issue a bench warrant, I got to get home, man. Like I said, I ain't going to jail. And Matt's like, if you decide to fight the case with the video evidence, your rap sheet, history of bench warrants, the judge will almost certainly set bail, which means unless you can pay to bail, I look like I got money to you? And Matt's like, you're going to sit in jail until the whole thing is over. He's like, so what are you trying to tell me to do? Cop out? You a cop-out lawyer? And Matt's like, if you take a plea, no. Look, man, you even think about telling me to cop out? You better go out there and get me my probation. Matt's like, I'm going to really try here, Leroy. Let me be clear. Probation is not going to be on the table. Then I ain't taking it. Matt's like, last time you got arrested for stealing, you got a 30-day sentence. Which means the DA's office is almost certainly going to offer something in excess of 30 days. Is 30 the same as probation? Matt's like, nope. On 30, you do 20. Then I ain't taking it. Matt's like, in which case, we're going to have to talk. Look, I don't want to hear no more poop about in which case. This is my case, and I'm going home on it. So he like waves both his hands like, you hear me, blind man? And Matt's like, loud and clear. So he's just like so rude. It's like Matt is doing this for him for free. He's not paying for this. So he's like loud and clear. Then he's like, then go out there and do your job and get me some probation. Matt's like, yeah, let me see what I can do. And he's like, see? Haha, see? That's funny because you can't see poop. And Matt just chuckles. So he goes up to this lady and she's like, what you got, Murdoch? He's like, morning, Sophia. But her name is Sophia with a J, Sofija. It's like interesting. He's like, I'm sure you look lovely today. Which is funny. He's like, I'm blind. I'm sure you look lovely today because I'm trying to give you a compliment, but I can't. So he's like, 8357 Bradford. And she's like, she's like, oh yeah, stole some caramel corn from the bodega. And Matt's like, yep, that's the guy. And she's like, looks like we went 30 days on this last time, so how about we go to 35? And Matt's like, so the guy's looking for probation. And Sophia's like, and I'm looking for Mr. Right. You're not him by any chance, are you? And Matt's like, maybe for probation. And she's like, or how about you remind your client that the whole point of deterrence, and Matt's like, a totally discredited penal philosophy, by the way. But okay. She's like, is that sentences go up and not down when you continue to commit crimes. Also, the deterrence works. Matt's like, his rap sheet would suggest otherwise. She's like, maybe we haven't been harsh enough. And Matt's like, or maybe the whole idea relies on the theory that people are actually thinking about the consequences of their actions, which I can assure you, having spent a full 5 minutes with Mr. Bradford, he was not. And she's like, if you don't like deterrence, then how about incapacitation? Let's just keep him off the streets for 35 days. He's like, come on, Sophia. You really want to prove a point over some stolen caramel corn on Latvian Heritage Day? And she's like, how'd you know it was Latvian? And he's like, pretty sure you snuck a piece of honey cake for breakfast. And she's like, wow. He's like, it's a blind thing. And she's like, He's like, heightened senses and all. And she's like, She's like, can imagine wanting to know a little bit more about that. He just like chuckles. He's like, plus with a name like, what was it? It's like Ozola or something like that. And she's like, well, she's like, given your cultural sensitivity and your very impressive nose, I'll give your guy 20 days. Matt's like, he's really stuck on probation. And she's like, did you remind him that the last time that he actually got probation, which was, by the way, 11 cases ago by my count? He's like, yeah. She's like, it only took him 2 months before his PO, parole officer, violated him for failure to report. And Matt's like, well, what can I say? The guy has strong preferences. And she's like, yeah, well, so do I. So how about this, 20 days? And he's like, of which he does 15 minus today. So you're really saying from a philosophical point of view, 2 weeks as opposed to probation? And she laughs. She's like, only you, Murdoch, arguing philosophy in criminal court arraignments. He's like, you started it. And while we're on it, isn't it worth pointing out that the name of the crime we're dealing with here is petty larceny? That's from the French petite, meaning she's like, all right, one time only, last and final offer. Mr. Bradford can have 10 days. And Matt's like, yes. He's like, thank you. See, I knew you believed in redemption. She's like, oh, I don't. But I do hope he appreciates you. And Matt's like, thank you. So he goes back, he kind of listens. He hears someone on the phone. He's like, what? No. It's like, that guy's an idiot. No. It's like, just you at 6 o'clock. So then the guy approaches. Matt's like, Officer Powell? He's like, I thought I recognized that voice. And so he's like on the phone. He's like, poop. He's like, I got to go. It's like, Counselor Murdoch, funny how we keep finding each other like this. Matt's like, yeah, isn't it? You doing the Lord's work today? And he's like, yeah. He's like, hey, you couldn't have a weak link out there, could you? He's like, what? And Matt's like, or, I don't know, maybe it was pride. Yela made you look bad, didn't he? And he chuckles. Actually, he flat out embarrassed you, and you can't have that at the NYPD. Is that why you did it? And Powell clears his throat. He's like, you have yourself a nice day, counselor. And then Matt's like, he had a family. He had a future, and you took that away from him. And then Powell kind of pushes him back against a wall, even though they're in a hallway. He's like, you can't see this badge because you're fudging blind. But my grandfather wore this badge. My father wore this badge. My brother wears this badge. 4 of my fudging cousins wear this badge. They're all knuckleheads, but they're good cops. So I wear this fudging badge with honor, counselor. And Matt's listening to his heartbeat. You hear tudum, tudum. And then Powell's like, and I don't know nothing to do with what happened to Hector Ayala. And the heart's just rhythmically the same. But then he's like, but here's something that I know. An attorney who assaults a police officer, and he scoffs, who obstructs an active investigation, not something that the Bar Association is going to take lightly if you catch my meeting, which is it's such an empty threat. He busts into a guy's apartment with no search warrant, ready to shoot him. And Matt chuckles. He's like, And then Powell's like, not to mention some of my more excitable colleagues on the force. And Matt's like, yeah, only you'd have to bring a few more than you did the last time we met, wouldn't you? Because he kicked their butts. So then Powell's like, all right. He's like, I'll be seeing you, counselor. So I guess he's telling the truth. That's what I got out of it. Fisk is walking by the docks. He's with Buck, Daniel, and Sheila. There's some rundown factories and that. He's talking about New York City being the greatest city on earth. He keeps saying that. New York's a great place. I don't have New York pride because I'm not from New York. I loved going to New York Comic Con and Toy Fair. Love walking through the city. Greatest city on earth? I don't know. New York is there's a lot of pride. Those New Yorkers, they're tough and they believe in that, but that's greatest city on earth? I want to hear some city debate. Who's in a better city? I don't know. So we need the city wars. City debate, not wars, no wars. So they're talking, he's like, heart of finance, publishing, international diplomacy, but I think we lost something along the way. industry. So there's like this model, like sitting there with it's like proposed expansion with there's like big cranes for like loading, I guess, containers or whatever. The pride of the working class. If I say Red Hook, what words come to mind? And I think like Sheila's like Graves and Daniel's like decrepit, or maybe I forget who said. Maybe she says that, and I think he's like, I mean, it's dirty too, or something like that. And Wilson's like, yes, this port is a black eye on the face of the city. It has been for a while. I think we could do better. I'm talking about a complete structural overhaul. And Sheila's like, that's not an option. And he's like, a total transformation. I told the people of this city I was going to come out of the gate strong. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But it's like, has he bothered looking at the budgets and costs or whatever? Daniel's like, hell yeah, sir. And he's like, Daniel, I want you to organize a press conference. I want to get this out immediately. And Sheila's like, with all due respect, you can't just decide something and then speak it into existence. And why is that, Sheila? It's like, this is city government. There are processes. He's like, yes, processes. I don't have much use for red tape. And she's like, I know that you're used to a different approach, but that's not how it works in this office. These things take time, patience. What's your opinion, Daniel? But Sheila's like, opinions are above his pay grade. Besides, there was another mob shooting yesterday, not 50 feet from here. Third one this month. The violence makes people uneasy. This is an ambitious goal. It's a worthy goal. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that we need to start smaller. And Daniel's like, that could be our next campaign slogan. So then Fisk is like, I hear you saying that my plan is improbable, but not impossible. You're giving me problems. I want solutions. Where do we start? But it's not a problem. It's like, those are facts. She's like, I suppose we would need to conduct a feasibility study, land surveys, building permits, zoning laws, environmental impact, traffic issues. The council will want to know that this project is viable. Yes, let's commission that study. And she's like, we can't do that without the council's approval. Then get the council to, she's like, no. And we can't get their approval until we ask the public advocate to put it on the docket. That's the first step. She's like, yes, sir. Let's take that step. And she's like, in the meantime, sir, we do have a full day in front of us. Full days. I'm all yours. And then Daniel and Sheila start walking, and then he says to her, she's like, I was basically going to say everything you did, so. Buck and Fisk are still at the model, and Buck sighs. He's like, she's right about one thing. Now, what's happening down here is a bigger problem than you realize. The other bosses will continue to create havoc until one of them is sentenced or they all die. Matt goes talk to his client. He's like, great news. And Leroy's like, you got that probation? He's like, nope. You got 10 days on which you do 7 minus today. You get the weekend bounce back and you are out on Friday. How is that great news? And Matt's like, come on, Leroy. It's like, the least you've gotten in your last 10 cases is 20 days. Anything below 30 is a gift. 10 is a miracle. And Leroy's like, look, I said probation and I meant probation. Matt kind of like slams his fist down. He's like, you took the stuff, Leroy. But he keeps his voice low. It's like, there's no probation to be had here. This is the best deal you're going to get. So tell me, how is this not a good job counselor situation? And Leroy's like, so you just want to shove my butt into jail. And I'm obviously editing this, of course. I'm supposed to say thank you? You just don't get it, do you? This poop never ends. I've been jerked around by the system my whole life. Last time, I got 30 days. You know what happened? I missed my SSI appointment and they cut my benefits. Bad enough trying to live off food stamps and then they cut it, man? It takes forever to get that poop back, regular. It's like, then you got to start eating throwaway crap at the supermarket dumpsters, begging for change for food. And yeah, just once, I want a dessert. Something that don't taste like crap. Something that tastes real good. So why'd I get the caramel corn? I like that poop. And it tastes good. And for that, they're willing to spend 5 times more to lock me up than they are willing to spend to feed me. And you come in here and tell me that that's a gift, that I should say thank you? And Matt's like, you're right. And then Leroy's like, it don't matter anyways. So he's just exasperated. But so I get what he's saying, but still, see, this is a tough situation. It's like, okay, why is Leroy in this situation? You know, he's got a record, he's got a rap sheet, so it's not like he can just get a job. But there's got to be some sort of job, someone willing to give him a shot. But can he keep up with that job? Are there any drugs involved or any drinking? He wanted fiddle faddle because he wanted dessert, but he needs food. I don't know. I mean, can he hold down a job or not? Or are there other issues? But it's like, and then the fact that it's like he's not even paying Matt. Matt's taking his time to go to get him, the best deal, and so it's hard. I don't know. We see Fisk. He's like sitting in front of a classroom. There's like a kids choir there. They're singing "We Built a City in Rock and Roll," the Jefferson Starship song. Sheila's like smiling. Daniel's on his phone, and I think she tries telling him, because put the phone down, and she's like, "There's something I want to show you," but she's just like trying to ignore him, and then he shows her his phone. BB report. So a BB exclusive, Mayor Garbage, a union buster, and he's like, "It was me." It's like, I totally screwed up, because he did mention that clean green or whatever it was. He's like, it was a mistake. I went out. She's like, you know what? I don't want to hear it. Just call the schedulers, have them pull the meeting off the calendar now. He's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, I said now, Daniel. He's like, yes, ma'am. Got you. And then he's like, how are we going to fix that? I mean, she's like, there is no we. She's like, I was here before you and before Fisk, and I will be here long after you are both gone. It's like, I will handle it. Understand? You just keep your mouth shut. So Fisk enthusiastically applauds, stands up, clapping. He's like, children have such talent. And it's like that. Then the teacher's like, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's like, now for our next one. She's going to sing another song. And he's like, no. It's like, that's fine. It's like, such talent. And he starts putting like his jacket on. So they get out to the SUV at another location. And Fisk asks Sheila, he's like, everything ready for the Clean Green Haulers meeting? And she's like, actually, sir, we had to pull that one off the calendar. There's a little wrinkle. And he's like, what's that? And she shows him like the article on her phone as they're walking. And she's like, they're calling you a union buster, so we've broomed the meeting off the schedule. It's like, we can do it quietly in a natural or neutral place sometime soon. And he's like, somebody screwed up. And Sheila's like, leaks happen. Not in my administration. It doesn't. And he roars, I want an all-hands meeting now. And then they're going upstairs. He's like, where am I? He doesn't know where he's at. And Sheila's like, it's the Latvian Cultural Center. It was on your calendar. Latvian Heritage Day? What do I care about Latvian heritage? She's like, you care because it's an important constituency. And he like sighs. She's like, you won by 16 points, which actually mattered in Queens. I'm not in the mood. And she's like, respectfully, Mr. Mayor, this is a job. So they enter a room. This dude announces Mayor Fisk. And then the Latvian choir starts singing in their language. We built this city. And he tries like just forcing a smile and being patient. Then in his office later, it's all hands. Everyone's there. He's holding up a tablet with the article and yells. He's like, Mayor Garbage, is that it? Is that your best? You are all here to help me execute my promises. And Daniel kind of glanced over at Sheila. My promises to the people, single promises. I will find out which one of you leaked this. I will find out. And that's killing my throat. I don't know why. And then Daniel steps forward. It was me, sir. I screwed up. And Sheila whispers, she's like, damn it. He's like, I completely made a mistake. The entire thing is my fault. Fisk like breathes heavily. He broaches Daniel. Everybody out. Out. Daniel starts like to walk out too. He's like, you stay right here. Sheila, I said out. And she's like, he's mine, sir. Whatever he did, it's on me. He's like, okay, fine. Suit yourself. You can go down with the ship. And then he's like, I want to apologize. I didn't mean to do it. I know that won't make it right. I know that nothing can. But I went out to a club till 4:30, maybe even 5. I had I had a lot to drink. Tequila, and in the spirit of total honesty, there was probably some ketamine. You should probably stop. But Daniel continues. He's like, I was drunk and stupid, and I didn't mean to do it, but I did do it. And I know that that's unforgivable, and I'm not even asking for forgiveness because I can't even forgive myself. Because the thing is, you're right. I don't deserve this job. I never did. So you're right to fire me or punish me or do whatever you're going to do. And I want to say that I'm eternally loyal and forever grateful for the opportunity. And I'll spend the rest of my life regretting how badly I screwed up. I believe in you. You have my vote forever. And whatever happens to me, I'll do whatever I can from afar to support you and your mayorship. And Sheila's just looking at him. She's kind of like stunned. And he's just like, going on and on, which is, I guess, maybe a good tactic because it kind of gives Wilson like a chance to like kind of calm down, and because he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna fire you, and Daniel's like, I'll pack my things right away, sir, and Fisk is like, I said I'm not gonna fire you, or you, Sheila. I've been around a lot of, let's say, I just know how unreliable people can be. I've learned that loyalty and courage, two qualities that are, well, not easily replicated. And Daniel's like, sir, I don't deserve it. And she's like, Daniel, just shut up. Fisk is like, are you trying to argue yourself out of a job? And Daniel's like, no, I'm not. I'm sorry, sir. And then Fisk puts his like hand on his shoulder. In the fullness of time, you'll make a better man. That said, if you ever do anything like that again, it will be the last thing that you ever do. Do you understand? He's like, yes, sir. Loud and clear. It'll never happen again. Then we see more graffiti, but this time it's signed and it says Muse next to it. But so this one is like White Tiger. It's kind of like his head, like in the mask, and kind of behind him are like actual like tiger eyes, like a white tiger, actual white tiger eyes. But they're the way it's cut, they're almost like wings coming like behind the head. And then at the bottom it says Vigilante Justice. So what does that mean, Vigilante Justice? Like justice from Vigilante? I mean, I'm assuming that this is like in honor of White Tiger, but it's not saying that he got justice, right? I think it's a positive thing. Another BB reports, woman's like, Mayor Fisk is like, you never see him. Every week it seems he's involved in a new scandal. I mean, look at what just happened with the garbage. And look at all the garbage on the street, you know? It's like, how can we trust a guy like that who makes all of these promises to actually have our back? So Matt, meanwhile, it's night. He walks to the spot where Hector was shot. He's thinking about the specifics: projectile not recovered, 9mm temple, execution style, single kill, shot at extreme close range, no one found the casing. So then this like little scooter drives by and it kind of like hits a bottle cap or like that. So kind of like flips and bounces and he listens. Then he knocks over like a water bottle, or like a glass bottle, and he listens to it like roll. And it goes into like sewer grate, like on the sidewalk, whatever those are called. So he goes down there, reaches in, he finds a bullet, and he takes it out. He's touching it, getting his fingerprints all over it. And I mean, should he have just left it there and say, hey, who's going to go out there and investigate it? Where I guess technically he could have just thrown it in there, but would there be any fingerprints, or was it wiped? I don't know. So he takes it. Then he walks a little more. He's going down the street. Then he kind of like, he walks, stops, and he kind of like backs into this alley, goes in an elevator. I don't know if he went up or down, but then it's like, kind of like a rundown building, you know, like wires in the hallway, like the ceiling, whatever. He goes in, there's an office. I don't know if it's like building super office. And he like calls out, the door's open. And he's like, hello. And then someone comes charging at him, like holding a hatchet, like, rah! And who is it? It's Frank Castle. And the thing that bums me out, because on the Disney Plus page, you see him like pushing Matt against like a wall. He's like, Frank, it's me, it's Matthew. And then he sees him and he like kind of slams a hatch into like a box on the shelf. He's like, what are you doing here? And Matt's like, how you been? Good? Peachy. And so he takes like some aspirin or like some sort of pills. He's like, what do you want? Matt's like, a client of mine was shot, Frank. He's like, guess whose logo I found on the bullet casing? And he puts like the casing like on the table. And he's like, oh, for Pete's sake. But he doesn't say Pete's. And I'm trying to keep this PG. So he's like, bunch of BS fanboys, huh? And Matt's like, yeah. And a bunch of them are cops. He's like, and Frank's like, what does that have to do with me? And Matt's like, yeah, nothing to do with you. Right. Silly me. Nice place you got here. And Frank's like, He's like, appreciate that. And Matt's like, here's a thought. You know, you could use all of this to be a service. And Frank kind of like laughs. He's like, yeah, be a service, huh? He's like, are you?
Are you of service, Red? Did you serve? You prance around the city in a Halloween costume, beating the snot out of bad guys. It's like, hey, thank you for your service. And Matt's like, I mean, you could help people. You could save lives. He's like, I did that. I was downrange, Red, and look where it got me. And Matt's like, oh, I apologize. I didn't realize you were a victim in all this. And he like flings his water. I don't know if it was drinking or like whatever liquid. He kind of flings across the room or at the table, and Matt kind of like dodges a splash. And Frank's like, I didn't use that wussy ass word my entire life. You don't put it in my mouth. You understand that? And Matt's like, all right. So you tell me what's going on, buddy. He's like, what are you doing down here day after day? Just hiding out? I ain't hiding from poop. You walked in. I'm right here. Matt's like, plotting your next kill? You're GD right. And Matt's like, great. How's that working out? You want to go out there on the street? Have at it. But I do not have the time for your candy butt hero poop. That's not how he said it. Is that clear? And Matt's like, yeah, loud and clear. Yeah? And Matt's like, sorry to waste your time. Yeah, I'll tell you what I think, Red. And Matt's like, tell me what you think. I don't think you came here for my help. See, I think you want my permission. You want to get your hands on somebody, huh? Want to hurt them? Maybe you're a little bit scared. A little scared what that means. Matt just like chuckles. He's like, that's an interesting take. I like it. But yeah, no, sorry, buddy. Way off on that one. And he's like, yeah, you're so full of poop, counselor. It's like, so full of poop. You're guilty. Matt's like, excuse me? Yeah, that guilt, that shame, that's my home, Red, and I can see it on you. I can smell it on you. It's all over you. And Matt's like, I'm going to come back another day, Frank. Maybe catch you at a better time. You come at me with that horse poop about saving lives? How about that friend of yours? You save his life? You lost him, didn't you, Red? And Matt turns back because he was like about to leave. He's like, it's not about him. And Frank's like, then say his name. And Matt's like, it's not about him. It's not about him. Ah, for Pete's sake, say his name. Say his name, you coward. Say his name. And he's like, it's not about him. And he's like, it's not about him? You hate yourself. It's eating you up because you ain't done a GD thing about it. So, and Matt like hits him like in the face and grabs him by the throat. He's like, And Matt like lets go and like moves back. He's like, GTU. And he exhales. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I apologize. What are you sorry for? First honest thing you did, Red. And Matt's like, it's not about him. No. He's like, okay. And he whispers, Frank whispers, he's like, it's all about him. It's like, he talks to you, doesn't he? Doesn't he? Is what he said. You hear his voice, don't you? Every time I stop moving, I still hear my little boy. I see him. And Matt's like, you can see, like, he's like fighting like tears, like he's about to sob or something. And Frank's like, I hear his voice. He says, get him, Daddy. Every last single one of them. Get him. That's why I do what I do. That's why I see it in you. That's why I see it in you. Because you know you didn't do a GD thing. And it's going to keep eating at you. It's going to keep eating and eating and eating. There's no getting away with it. You understand? And Matt's like, I ran him down. He's like, for Pete's sake. Matt's like, I did what I had to do. And I let the system take care of the rest. And Frank's like, oh, you and your GD. Matt remembers, like, he says something. He's like, you and your GD system. So what now? Every day Bullseye goes to the chow hole, eats his slop. You know he gets to breathe the same air that you breathe. He's like, you feel good about that? And Matt's like, he got life. And he's like trying to like hold in the tears. And Frank just like looks at him. He's like, how about old Foggy? He get life? And Matt's like, Foggy. And he like sniffles. He was the kindest, purest soul I ever met. And guys like you and me, we can work a lifetime and never measure up to his decency. He's like, goodbye, Frank. And Frank just like stands there. So then we see Vanessa and Wilson. They're sitting at a table. I don't know if there's like documents or something in front of them. Wilson has like some whiskey. She's got like wine or something like that. And then she's like, so when Dr. Glenn asked to talk, and Fisk is like, she asked you if you felt safe with me. And Vanessa just like looks at him. He's like, I assumed. It's what a prudent psychiatrist would ask. And Vanessa's like, I told her I did, and I wasn't lying. He's like, well, I'm glad you feel that way. And she's like, I do. But Wilson, should I? When I was a boy, I learned by watching my father how to shake a man's hand, how to know when someone intends to cheat you. I learned the power of persuasion, how to move men's minds or break their bodies. But forgiveness, that wasn't a part of who he was. No, I am trying. I would like for things to be the way they were before. I understand that may not be possible. And she's like, people change. I'm not the same woman I was when you left. No, you aren't. Are you? You're something even more extraordinary.
And we see Matt walks into his apartment and Heather's there. And she's like, if I didn't know any better, I think you were trying to avoid me. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I got pulled into another meeting. She's like, you don't have to be sorry. He's like, really? And she's like, well, maybe a little bit. It's funny how when I'm not sleeping over, I don't worry about you, but you come home late one night and my mind is spinning. I mean, what if he fell into the subway tracks? Maybe someone kidnapped him. He's like, kidnapped? Maybe he needed a Heimlich and there was no one to give it. She's like, I'm excellent at the Heimlich. He's like, oh yeah? She's like, mm-hmm. And Matt's like, well, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm sorry, whatever. Just one of those days, I guess. A client who was proven innocent still ends up dead and nobody seems to care. She's like, I know. She's like, I'm sorry about that, Matt. And he's like, another client serving time at Rikers for stealing a bag of caramel corn. And she's like, sounds a little excessive. He's like, you ever feel like you're pushing a rock up a hill and there's a bunch of people on the other side pushing it back? And he's like, how was your day? And she's like, oh, a few garden variety neurotics / depressives, plus a not so garden variety couple in crisis. And Matt's like, none of which you can tell me about. And she's like, well, I can pretty much tell you anything you want to know. And he's like, really? And she's like, mm-hmm. And she's like really close. She's been like kind of getting him undressed, like taking off his jacket and like unbuttoning his shirt. And she's like kind of holding him, she's like gets close and she's like, I just have to kill you. And he's like, Matt's like, I got pretty used to coming home to an empty apartment. And she's like, and now? And he's like, and now I can't imagine you not being here. Good answer. Smooch. Then we see like shots of the city streets. Then we see Matt's like lying awake in bed. She's out. Then there's like footsteps. I don't think he can hear it because like Fisk is walking down some stairs. Matt goes up on the roof. He goes. There's like this little like utility closet up there, and then he's like in an elevator. So it's like a secret elevator, and then there's like a row, like lots of Daredevil helmet. And then we see him like open up a case, and it has like his staff or whatever, billy clubs or something. Fisk gets out a big platter like pasta with sausage. So it's like, wait, is he cheating on his diet now? Because the meals he's been eating have been really tiny. And he pours like a big glass of wine. Matt starts, he put like the sticks, whatever, he made a staff. He's like twirling it around. And then someone's like, please, Mr. Fisk. And he's like, Mayor Fisk. And he like slices a sausage. And then Matt, I don't know what it's called. So he's got his staff. And there's like a weight on a rope. At first I was like, is it a grappling hook thing? No, but it's like, it's a thing. It's like a rope or wire with like a heavy weight. So I think so you can clunk people in the head with it or something like that. So he starts like kind of spinning that around. And Fisk is like, I was told forgiveness is the highest form of love. And you see he's like, now he's sitting in front of like a jail cell because there's a person like grabbing the bars and he's got like his hands already bloody or something like that. And Fisk is like, I wonder, would you agree with that, Adam? He's got Adam locked up somewhere, and Adam, you can't fully see him behind the bars, but he's there. He's got like looks like long hair and a beard. So Matt's like swinging the weapon rope thing around. Adam's like, please, Fisk, please, let me out. Matt's flings like the weight weapon thing, whatever, at the camera, and that's how it ends. But no, I thought it was over. Then we see Muse carrying another body, and then there's like paintings of like people screaming like in pain or something like that. And the dude that just came in, that he just brought in, kind of wakes up and Muse is like taking blood out or something like that. And the dude starts screaming and that's where it ends. So is he kidnapping people and then killing them, torturing them so he can paint them in this final moment, or I don't know. But still no Daredevil, but because he went to his Daredevil closet and started playing with his weapon thing, does this mean he's gonna go back into it after talking to Frank because he needs this outlet? He needs I don't know. So we'll have to see. So, but that's a funny thing because it's a great show, but it's more like it's a lawyer show, like a crime drama or whatever, court drama. But yeah, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get some. But if he dresses up, what's he going to do? Go after Muse? Because it's like not really like a super. Unless I hope Bullseye doesn't break out of jail and then he has to fight Bullseye again. But maybe that'll be his way to deal with the feelings against of guilt with Foggy. But man, I do not care to see him again. But we'll see. All right, then the movie feature is Snow White, and so as I was saying, at the beginning, I wasn't super crazy about this, and I don't. There's like so much controversy, and I'm trying not to get into it. I'm not totally clear on what the controversy is. I know, and it's like kind of weird. There's a lot of people that apparently don't like Rachel Zegler. And I don't know if there's some comments she made, and I don't know if it has anything to do with Snow White being, I don't even know, because, some people are like, well, Snow White is supposed to be white, she's supposed to skin as white as snow or whatever, and stuff like that, and Rachel Zegler's not white, so is this a racial, racist casting issue that people have? And, when it comes to certain things, I feel like characters should look like their whatever fictional counterpart. But if what I say, if you're going to cast someone different, and see, even saying different sounds weird. If you're going to cast someone who is not the exact same as the fictional thing, it should be, were they the best person that auditioned? Or was it that they specifically, like for this, that they're like, we want to cast a person of color. We want to cast a non-white Snow White. And that's where I have an issue, where you're limiting the potential candidates or whatever you want to call them. And I always go back to Riverdale, because when I saw the casting things, if those were accurate, like for Veronica, they're like, we want to cast a Latina actress to play Veronica Lodge. And what's her name? Camila Mendes. I mean, she was great. She was. She is such a good Veronica. I mean, that the cast for that show. The show gets crazy and wonky, but she was great for that. But was there anyone else that could have been cast that didn't even get a chance because they're automatically eliminated? And that's the same thing with this. And I don't know, with like Little Mermaid, did they specifically like, we want a person of color to play Ariel? Or was it that she, what's her name? Was she like the best person? Because the thing with Rachel Zegler, she can sing. Whatever issues you may have with what she said or anything like that, she can sing. And when we have this movie, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, I do have issues with casting when it looks different, but where maybe I'm a little hypocritical, but I'm not overly invested in Snow White. I don't have a horse in the race type of thing. So you're going to mix things up. Okay, I am open to that. It's and it would be different if you're say, we're going to change Spider-Man. Because I feel like Spider-Man should be a white kid. That's where things get a little touchy. So watching this, I was okay with Rachel Zegler. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Gal Gadot, as the what's her even name? Is it the evil queen? I was like, okay, I like the things that Gal Gadot has done. But then that's the other thing. There's all this controversy, like Gal Gadot, she served in the army, Israeli army, but it's like she didn't have a choice. And is she supporting this? Is she not supporting this? And, children and genocide and this and that. I don't even know. I can't even keep that stuff straight. And that's fine, the artist and the art, kind of keep the two separate, and I just don't even know. And then there's like the drama that like, oh, Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler didn't like each other, but then it wasn't necessarily that they didn't like each other. I mean, they have opposing views on certain things, I guess, with this whole Israel and Palestine stuff. But one of the insider sources said that they're different ages. So they don't have like certain things in common because they're just different generations type of thing. So they're not going to be hanging out and whatever like that, and that's fine. They're coworkers. I get along with my coworkers. I don't necessarily hang out with them, and there's different reasons for that. They're not as cool. So I feel like people are just like trying to make drama when there isn't necessarily drama. Now, the other thing with this movie, as I'm watching this, because I was really trying to, have an open mind, and I still haven't said like what I thought about it. But as I'm watching, as I'm sitting there before this movie starts, and I went to a preview showing, and it was an earlier showing. It wasn't like the theater wasn't that full, but there was like I think it was like a couple moms and a group of young girls, and so I'm looking at it's like that's like the target audience, and I wish I could have said, hey, did you guys enjoy this movie? But I thought I don't know if that'd be weird. It's like, who are you, dude? Why are you talking to us? The dude going to see Snow White by himself. But as I'm looking at, because this movie is not made for me. It's not meant for me, not necessarily. And I do like the Disney movies, and I like all the most of the Disney princess movies because I had a daughter, and I've seen pretty much all of them. I think I've seen all of them. But with like Snow White, I have deep respect for Snow White as like, was it the first movie and just a classic, and it gets creepy with those trees and all that. But the story itself was never necessarily my favorite. It was just okay for me. And, I think it does feel a little dated because it was the classic, it was the first, so there's that part of it. So with this movie, I'm like, it's a little different. Like with Little Mermaid, that was a more recent thing for me. So I felt more of a connection with that. And my daughter loved Little Mermaid. She loved Ariel. And, if you go back and listen to episode 300, my daughter, and she's on the episode, and we talk about, what we thought about that. We both enjoyed it. So, I think it's important to have an open mind with that. And I know, again, that's where I'm sounding hypocritical, because if it was a major comic character, I would probably be a little more resistant to that. But, I'm trying to accept the fact that, I'm not like told I'm not going to boycott it. Where's the torches and the pitchforks outside the movies? It's like, no, that's just silly. I'm looking at Snow White, and I feel like I'm just going way too long about this. But I'm thinking, this isn't for me. And the important thing is, what I think really matters is, will the target audience, will the girls and boys, whoever's into the idea of this movie, will they like it? And that's what I'm hoping for. It doesn't have to cater to whatever I may or my expectations or anything like that. I just want people to watch this movie and enjoy it, be able to enjoy it. And there's been like some clips, like you've seen some stuff like with Rachel Zegler, and seeing some of the fans, and there is one shot that is probably like specifically edited for this little video I saw. But there's this little girl who is not a little white girl, and she's dressed as Snow White. And again, that is awesome. I think it's important for little kids, because just because if you're not a little white girl doesn't mean you can't wear Snow White dress. My daughter had a Belle dress. She really liked Belle. And my daughter kind of resembles. She's not as since she's not pure Latina. She doesn't necessarily. She could pass for Belle type of thing, but that's a different thing. And it didn't matter if that Belle, whatever she was, that she had zero Latina in her. My daughter really liked her. She also really liked Ariel. So that's a bad example. I feel it is important for people to be comfortable in liking certain. Like you don't have to be light skinned and blonde hair to like Elsa. So I think it's important that we can embrace the change and just let kids be kids and whatever makes them happy. And that's what I hope people get out of this movie. Now, what did I think of the movie? I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. It was all right. Like I said, Rachel Zegler did great singing. Gal Gadot was good as the evil queen. I just think like parts of the story is just kind of, and this goes back to the original. I was like, oh, I should watch the original animated, before seeing that because it's been a long time. But the whole basically, what's the premise of this movie? Gal Gadot, she marries the king, and she basically hates Snow White because she's envious. She wants to be the fairest of them all. She's got this magic mirror, and I'm pretty sure in the movie they said the sole purpose of the magic mirror is just to tell her if she's the fairest of them all or not. It does absolutely nothing else. It doesn't say, hey, this is what the weather is, or hey, this is what the stock is doing over, in the other countryside. It's just, that's all it does. And it just seems very petty and ridiculous. So it's like this evil queen, she just wants a kingdom for herself. And what is she going to do with that? She has no friends. She has no one to talk to. And she just wants the money and she doesn't really get the adoration from the people. She's turned like farmers into soldiers, and it's like they kind of fear her. They don't love her, and I don't even think she cares about that. So it'd be one thing that she wants people's attention, that you would try to be like a good queen and make people happy, make them like you, but she doesn't even do that. So you got that. The biggest problem I had with this movie is what like people complained about from the trailer is the dwarves, the CG dwarves. They look horrific. They look scary. They're just it's just weird because it's live action, and then you got these dwarves that don't look live action. They are so clearly CG, and there's a lot of CG animals. The CG animals look amazing. They look so pretty realistic. But the dwarves do not, and it's just weird. They're like, because like you look at like the dwarves' heads, like when they're sitting next to Rachel Zegler, it's like their heads are huge. So it's just kind of silly. The movie felt long too. I think it was like an hour and 46 minutes. So it just felt like it was just really long. So I was at, and then the new music. And I can appreciate a musical, like, with Wicked, and I do need to see Wicked again. But I was like really surprised by Wicked. I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't even going to see Wicked. I saw it like the second week it was out, and I thought it was great. I was like, wow, I'm not anti-musical. The Greatest Showman, I love that movie, and I really want to watch that again. But there's times in this movie, they break out into song. Then at the end, it's like da 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 da, and they just sit there and like pause, and it's just like I'm thinking of, I always think about these musicals, like, are they really singing? Do they hear the music? Is the music really playing, or are they just randomly singing? The music's in their head, and then other people may join in. Other people are like, wait, what do you do? It's just like this weird. And then when they just pause, I feel like that's just kind of awkward. It's like pause, and then continue talking about whatever. It just seems weird, but whatever. It's a musical. We accept that. The new songs, I didn't necessarily love the new songs. They were okay. The performances were good. Gal Gadot sings a song, and I was like, is she really singing? And I looked it up after, and it said that she did. She said that she did. She said she did a lot of vocal training, whatever, and she commented that she actually had to audition for this movie. She's like, she doesn't necessarily always have to audition anymore because she's Gal Gadot. People know who she is and what she can do, but she had to audition because they wanted to see if she could sing. And because when she's singing, it does not sound like her. When she speaks, she kind of has an accent. She speaks in a certain tone or whatever, pronunciation, dialect or what, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But she talks a certain way. If she talks, that's Gal Gadot's voice. That's her enunciation and everything like that. So then the singing doesn't really sound like that. And I totally get when you sing, you don't always hear your accent. When you hear the Beatles talk in the 60s and you hear them sing, it sounds so different. It's like, wait, is this really them? So you can have that, but it just to me, what do I know? It just really didn't feel like it was her. But I'll give the benefit of doubt if they did, because and I'm not the only one to ask this, because when I looked it up, there was lots of questions about this. And going back to the music, when I was like some of these songs, I was like, wow, this really sounds like Greatest Showman, like the "This Is Me," like the chorus singing at the end. Oh, and it that always kind of made me emotional. You see everyone singing, and I really love that soundtrack. And I was like, wow. It's like, are they? That sounds like it. I looked it up. It was the same writers that wrote The Greatest Showman, and I love that soundtrack. I love The Greatest Showman music, but the Snow White was just okay for me. And but then on top of that, going back to Gal Gadot, like Rebecca Ferguson's character in Greatest Showman, Rebecca Ferguson didn't sing. I forget the other singers that actually did it. So Rebecca Ferguson lip synced. So people are like, well, maybe Gal Gadot lip synced because whatever, but apparently not. So we have that. Now, how is the movie doing? It's weird on Rotten Tomatoes. I look here. What? I'm not seeing a popcorn meter score. I've checked this out, and it's still like early in the weekend. The critic score has gone down. It was at a 40. I think it was like at a 46. Now it's at a 44. But the popcorn meter, which is the audience score, it says, because the critics is based off 177 reviews. The popcorn meter is based off of 250 plus verified ratings, but there is no score. And I've refreshed it. I'm not seeing anything, and I don't know if they're being cautious or being reluctant to put a score there because of the whole review bombing thing. I do not understand. Why do people have such an agenda? They want to falsify a rating by making a bunch of it's so stupid. Why do you care that much? Why do you hate it? And before the movie came out, if there's ever a post on Instagram where people are like, this movie sucks, it sucks. It's like, it's not even out yet. How are you saying that? It's like, are you just that racist or whatever, that narrow-minded, that it just seems silly. So yeah, there's no audience score, even though there's been 250 plus reviews. So how is this movie going to do is a question. Let's see, the budget, I don't know if this information is going to be available. Okay, wow. The budget was $250 to $270 million. And I'm sure because there's a lot of CG in the movie, just making everything right. Let's see, projection. Can I find this on here? Oh, there's a lot. I should have read this page. There's stuff on Gadot and Zegler's political views. We can talk about that. Zegler's criticism. Yeah, there's definitely some things. Okay, so we need to look at that stuff. Box office. It's the film was initially projected to gross 63 to 70 million, with analysts comparing the projection to the 69.4 million opening of Maleficent, and believing the film would overcome its controversies and fare well financially. And no strong competition, but in late February, projections were lowered. Okay, yeah, because there's this movie Ash that came out. I want to see that, but I don't know if my theater had it. So now they're saying 45 to 55 million is a projected. So we have that. So yeah, it's not going to do well. Okay, controversies. Casting of Snow White. The casting of Zegler, a Latina actress, drew criticism as the character is described in original as having skin as white as snow. Does that matter? It's fiction, and this is inspired by it. I don't know. Zegler responded to comments in January 2022 saying Snow White is popular in Spanish-speaking countries and having a Latina in such a role is rare, and she was proud to be cast. Okay. August 2023, it was revealed that another Latina actress, Renata Vaca, was one of the two finalists in the casting process for the role of Snow White. Vaca stated that the casting call for the role of Snow White was open to all ethnic groups, and that the first phase of auditioning consisted of singing a Disney princess song. Okay, so see, that is good. If this other actress who didn't get the role has no horse in this race, she says that it was open to everyone. So they didn't specifically say, we want to cast a Latina actress. That makes me feel good. Or not even good, but I'm okay with that. But then October 2024, Zegler revealed that in the film, the character would be given the name Snow White after her parents survived a snowstorm to remind her resilience. And Zegler says, which Zegler says was a plot line used in another version. So, okay, that's fine. Then there's stuff about reimagining the Seven Dwarfs. January 2022, Peter Dinklage, who has a form of dwarfism and has played dwarfish characters in his career, commented on an upcoming live-action Snow White remaking, dismissing it as a backward story. And in response, Disney stated that to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. Okay. Yeah, other people, numerous other actors with dwarfism responded negatively to Dinklage's comments, feeling he was unduly speaking on their behalf and costing them roles. Okay, so yeah, I don't know about that. Zegler's criticism of the 1937 film. She attracted criticism over statements expressing disapproval with the aspects of the original film, including the prince and Snow White's characterization. She criticized jokes about Snow White character being PC, saying that the cartoon was old and needed a refresh to give the characters a function beyond, quote, someday my prince will come. But there's other things like also about their age. I don't know if she commented anything about that. Many rebuked her for making Snow White more feminist, while others criticized her for misinterpreting feminism, blah, blah, blah. I mean, people, whatever, need to get over that. Then there's Godot and Zegler's political views. Both Godot and Zegler have been openly, and I'm curious about this, that's why I'm reading it, have been openly vocal about some of their political stances, which caused further controversy for the film. The release of the film's teaser trailer provoked calls to boycott the film from both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict due to Godot and Zegler's opposing stances on the conflict, with Godot supporting her native Israel and Zegler supporting Palestine. Another call to boycott the films was made by the Republican supporters in the aftermath of the 2024 United States presidential election, as Zegler posted F. Donald Trump, and attacked those who voted to re-elect him, saying, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." So that's why so many people are angry at Rachel Zegler. Zegler later issued an apology, saying that she meant no harm in her message while offering a call for peace. Oh my goodness. It's a movie for kids. That's the important thing. That's what I think we need to take away from this. It was fine. I'm tired now just thinking about all that stuff. So keep an open mind. Like, I always talk to the secretaries at school and they're like, so what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down? And I think it really depends on, do you care about Snow White? Do you care about a Disney remake? Like I said, if it wasn't for the podcast, I wouldn't have watched this. What I will say, and I was like, gosh darn it. Oh, I didn't say gosh darn it. As I'm walking out of the theater to my car, I started, and I was like, oh, jeez. And I stopped myself right there. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, stop it. The friggin' movie got me whistling. And I didn't even love that song in the movie. I don't like that song in the original movie. And I was whistling after the movie. What does that say? That says that I've talked enough about this movie. So see it if you care. If you're into the Disney movies, the princess movies, Snow White, anything like that, if you like Zegler or Gal Gadot, either one or both, it's worth checking out. Should you see it in the big screen? Yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of cool things here, except for the doors. They just, I don't know what's going on there. We need George Lucas to come and remaster the movie and fix it. Special edition Snow White. I don't know. So it's a fine movie. It's not my favorite, but it's not meant for me. So I'm okay with the movie existing, and I really hope it makes kids happy. That is my hope. I want them all to have a smile on their face during the movie. That would be great. And I hope you had a smile on your face at some point in this podcast. But that is going to be it for this week. Maybe you got a smile because the podcast is over. Now you can go do something else. I don't know. But thank you for listening. Thanks to Andrew Loken for being a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/jmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. Currently, I'm probably going to do, I got to do another Fantastic Four, John Byrne. So we're doing some Doctor Doom stuff, important stuff here, Secret War stuff. So you can check that out. Sometimes I talk about other stuff. I will be doing another Off My Mind at some point. I need to think of something to talk about. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 4. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. So what's going to be next week? I debated because there's a few movies opening up next week. I was like, what should we do? So next week we have Woman in the Yard, which I don't think I'm going to see that in the theater. At some point I may see it. We have a Working Man, Jason Statham. I think we already know what that movie's about, and it's probably going to be fun to watch. But what I am going to see is Death of a Unicorn. So that is, I think it's an A24, right? Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, and I did see the trailer, and it looks very weird, so I'm going to see that. The following week is Minecraft, and I don't think I'm going to see that. So maybe I'll see Working Man next week, or maybe depending on how reviews are for Woman in the Yard, there's that. I'm also curious about that movie Ash that came out this week, but I don't know. So we'll see. And then like TV show, I don't think there's anything new coming out next week. There's something coming out in April. No, and of course I can't remember it now. That because I'll think of it later. But that is going to be it. So we have one more Severance next week, and we have some more Daredevil. I hope you are doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're finding time for fun things, and I hope you remember to whistle while you work and be good to each other.